Oh, hello, Lynn. Did you see Brian shaved his curly hair? Oh, now
About
everyone
damn time.
sees. What? What do you mean?
You
Come
got
on,
enough comments saying that it needed to be shaved that you finally caved.
no, no,
Yep.
I don't let that influence me too much.
Mhm.
Actually, I got a lot of comments both ways, but either way, it was a fun day. Let the kids do it, which was fun. Patrick will be joining us. He's got a lot going on with the Army back in Germany and just getting back to his room. But we wanted to start anyway. We had to push it back a couple hours today, but we have Maysa here for 1 hour. So we wanted to make sure to maximize the time with her. And so I think we'll start with that. Maysa, you were killing it this weekend,
Thank you.
cranking out the one question interviews. Where did you get the idea for the one question interviews?
To be honest, kind of on the fly, I feel like often pulling athletes before, during, or after competition can be stressful or a lot for them. Like they probably don't want to talk a ton. So, quick one question. It's easy for me, easy for them. And I think it allows people to see a little bit of their personality. It's kind of fun. I don't know, it worked.
It definitely worked. I thought it was really cool. I thought you were able to get a ton of athletes, and like you said, I think it was just a very accessible way to interact with them. Personally, I often stay away from doing stuff like that during competition, or even interacting with them too much, just because I know how much is going on. But
Mhm.
good job, love the interviews. Yeah, looking at Stan and his, yeah. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
he was
how
struggling. I
many did you
mean,
get? How many did you
everyone
try
was
to get
struggling
after
after
the?
that.
That was the bike sled.
Yeah, I mean, that was straight carnage. So I wasn't trying to get a ton. I think he had like a decent amount of time before not decent, but like it wasn't immediately after. It was probably like a few minutes, which to be honest may have been worse at that point. I don't know. But he was a good sport about it. That's why I was like, just one question, go recover. Yeah.
No, you were probably right about that. I mean, most of the athletes were finishing that workout in like 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. I did that workout with the women's weights and calories on that same turf in
I
our
knew it was with the women's calories.
in the testing, like when we were on the
Yeah,
on-site
you were
testing,
trying to argue with me that you would beat me and you did the woman's calories. That doesn't count.
and I would beat you on it.
I would still beat you with women's, don't worry.
There's no way, but it
You
was
should
like that.
poll the audience because Brian thinks you could beat me in workouts, and that's definitely not the case. At some
There's
point,
very
we'll have to
specific
go.
workouts,
At
very
some point, we'll
specific
have to go
workouts.
head to head.
100 calories for time on the bike, 50
Yeah,
meters
but it
swim,
has to be. It has to be scaled woman to men, and then I beat you.
50-meter swim.
There's no. Even if you look at elite athletes, the woman and men can't do the same calories and have the woman beat them. That makes no sense.
Um, But yes, that workout, that sled bike workout, it like creeps up on you after you finish. I mean, it's bad when you finish and
Should
it
we
just
go through the workouts one by one?
we can. That was just a fun point of entry there. But I don't know. I wanted to just because you put a post up today, just kind of pretty much saying that you had an
Mhm.
amazing time there, and that also that you were motivated by what you saw this weekend when it comes to starting your gym. That
Yep.
you're probably within a month of opening.
Yeah, we're looking at about 4 weeks for me to open my gym. So if you're in Charleston, South Carolina, come see IBX Performance Training. It is currently in build out. Yeah, I think that I have built a large portion of both my personal and professional life around functional fitness as a practice, as a sport, as a lot of different things. And I think, obviously, as we all know, the space has had just a lot of tough times and negativity lately. And I think that this was such a breath of fresh air that everyone was so happy in such a good mood. I keep saying vibe because I don't really know a better word for it, but
Everybody's saying vibe. I watched the behind the scenes, and one of the episodes there were like 6 unique interviews, and each person said vibe.
yeah, I think it's like the energy in the air. I don't know. I've been to a lot of bigger competitions at this point, and I think one of the things I noticed most that I told the WFP team is I can't. I only know a little bit, but I can only imagine how stressful putting on an event of that magnitude is. And not one single person, even like down to scoring, which is probably one of the most stressful roles you can be in, had any like negative energy, any stress. Everyone was just happy. And I think that was something they had spoken about, but I think also like Will said in an interview, like happier people work better, right? So, and you really felt it. Like it felt different. And I think also because for the athletes it's not like there's multiple events. So it's not like everything's on the line every single workout. It's so limited. They feel like they have a season. So it was a lot more relaxed from their perspective. And then also having like Will and Saxon leading a lot of the team and being so close to competition themselves, I think they had a lot of good interaction with the athletes, with the staff. Overall, I was just very impressed with the vibe. I don't know a better word. If you have a better word for it, please tell me. But the energy in the space, it just, I left feeling like joy, honestly. Like every interaction I had, every connection I made was just so positive.
Yeah, and it seems to me like I mean, my role was very secluded. So I
Hmm.
didn't get to go out and interact. Like I saw this reel that one of the media members from Costa Rica made that they posted today, just like kind of these little highlights of
Yep.
all the external media people doing their things throughout the weekend. And I was
The
like,
skateboard kickflip one.
yes. And like even
Yeah.
Tommy was in there on the video. I'm like, what the heck? Like I didn't see any of this. So I'm kind of living vicariously through all the different
Hmm.
people that I've spoken to, either right after the competition ended on Sunday night or since then. Um, and what I've really appreciated is the feedback's been largely positive, but the things that are like critiques are not like criticisms; they're more like suggestions, and
Hmm.
they really seem like small. Can we do this,
Yeah.
Patrick? Since you guys both have those B.Friendly shirts, I got a CrossFit shirt on today for the WFP podcast. I'm actually at CrossFit Project Fitness here in Las Vegas with my boys from HDR CBD that have been sponsoring our podcast and me personally for about 2 years now. They sponsor the disc golf tournament I'm playing in this weekend. I just did a salt bike workout and they gave me the shirt, so I said, "Let's go." But I didn't. It's just kind of weird with the B.Friendlies right next to each other. I actually hate being in the middle though. Yeah,
Oh my
there
gosh,
we
the
go.
drama.
Maybe Maysa should be in the middle.
Oh gosh.
They
We were
never
That's
just
actually.
talking about PC, how like great the vibe was essentially at the event, how everyone was super happy.
Um, yeah, I don't know, Brian, if you talked about it, you kind of let it out of the bag last time we spoke 2 weeks ago. But yeah, I, I am working with the WFP. So, what you look so shocked, Brian? Um, so
Is
I
this
kind of
info like Brian acting like this is the first time he's heard this information?
no. And that was for a reason. I just, I kind of want to see things out, and just and kind of not let anything go out in terms of bias. But my job is basically, to provide customer service for outside media, and all the feedback I've been getting back. And if you haven't noticed, I've been kind of reposting some stuff, but it's not a indication of who I am or what I did, but more as a team. And Mesa, Brian, you got to see that, like, our team was really small. Myself, Kate, Rebecca, and Diana, and Mesa, you helped out a lot being there, but it was kind of neat, just seeing all that feedback, and you could see that in the media room. Brian, he messaged me because there's a couple things we posted, and it was just the vibe in the media room was just really cool,
It
and
really was.
that's what I wanted. I wanted all the media to feel like they're relaxed, fun, great atmosphere, for all media. Dense updates. Jenny Hole, she can be rather contentious, especially when it comes to myself and Brian. But she she was another person. If you've been able to watch her update, she had a lot of good things about how she was treated while she was there, and that's important. That everyone was treated, fairly and fun, and I don't know, just not have to
Hold on,
worry about.
we gotta yell at Lynn first, Patrick. This is unacceptable. She was there and she didn't find you. If you had found Patrick, he 100% would have brought you to where I was.
Oh, 100. That was like half my job, it seemed like.
You didn't see me because I was behind the camera all weekend. Getting interviews
Lynn,
for you.
Lynn, this is specifically for you. If you're at a competition, find us. Period.
And Lynn, I did recognize you. I actually meant to come back to say hi to you, but I was all over the place. But like Lynn, you saw I was all over the place. But it was fun. It was fun. It kept me busy. I think overall, I said it to a couple other people that have been in my position at the games or at Rogue, and like a lot of what I grabbed was something that I saw that they did or didn't do, and just entered it into what we did. And I think that was the whole point of WFP is just kind of like just trying out nothing that the WFP hasn't been, is new, maybe new to the space, or it's been suggested. It's just been tried out. They've had the balls to do it or the ability to do it. And but yeah, and that's kind of how I approached it, and that's how Brian approached it from the seat he was at. Yes, Brian was behind. I mean, I got that all the time. Where's Brian? Where's Brian? I'm like, you see that giant curtain up there? He's behind there somewhere. If you want to go see him, let me know. I'll take you up there.
Sounds like the Wizard of Oz when you say it that way.
You were. You're
He's behind the curtain.
Exactly. And
That's what they say about the Wizard of Oz, right?
Maysa spent a lot of time behind the curtain too, because we had this. We created this area. It was kind of like it was like a interview pit. It was off the floor.
Yeah.
It was it had like curtains around it. It was like one step before you went into the athlete area, and it was kind of a place off the floor that the athletes can kind of decompress, not to deal with just the noise or anything like that. And I thought it was a pretty cool setup, especially since Maysa pretty much had it all to herself.
Yeah, it was awesome. I can't complain.
Yeah.
Let's address this one from CJ. My main note as a semi-professional online fitness watcher, not being able to rewind the stream and have long delays between events streams is a problem, like a weekend changing problem. So this, I would say, is probably the most eloquent way that I've seen this concern expressed. And I resonate with this a lot because through the last 4 years, I've been a subscribing member to the Disc Golf Network. Surprise. And up until this year, they've had this same issue where when you're watching in real time, you can't go forwards or backwards. There's no option to start from the beginning. And this year, for some reason, they changed that. So you can actually, when I go to watch in the middle of a round, if I'm trying to watch it live, I have the option, like you would watching a TV show, start at the beginning or watch live. And then when you're watching it, you can scroll back and forward even when it's live. And it used to be where you had to wait for it to finish, wait an hour or two, and then it would upload and you could watch it on replay and then you could scroll through. So definitely is feedback that's been received and noted. I don't know on the technical side or the cost side how possible or probable it is to integrate that in our next event, but it definitely has been heard by the team. And for the people that are wanting it to be on YouTube, I would say, like, I get it because that's what you're used to, but there's things that you can't do on YouTube that we can do on this real-time player that we're paying to use. And one of the important things that we have the ability to do is to populate it with, I don't know, with what?
Say a lot of curse words.
You can swear on it. Yeah, we had Annie Thorzauer. She's just completely unpredictable, so we had to make sure to do that now. It's for the language translations, which was actually a fairly complex system that Rodri primarily figured out how to do, and they could watch it in 3 different ways: English with subtitles in 8 different languages, or they actually could hear the audio come through in their language translated using AI technology. So that was one of the reasons that we wanted to use that player. It also, because of knowing that the subtitles would be on the bottom of the screen, dictated some of the placement for the graphics. I heard some people asking to see the workout more frequently. Totally understand that. So those are totally fair. And then this one, we saw people talking on lighting during the JIC. Some athletes couldn't see. What was your take on that? I spoke to a few of the athletes, and a few athletes in particular who I would consider their opinions very valuable because they're a ton of experience in high level competition and not emotional. They're just very practical. And they basically said they were able to adapt to that. My personal feeling on the lighting is that it was completely fine, with one exception, is I wouldn't have changed the lights immediately on the end of that lifting window, knowing that the athletes were able to lift after taking out of the jerk. That was the
I
one.
will say, I had more than 5 athletes tell me that it's what made it cool for them. Like they thought it was one of the best parts of the setup, that it was like a spectacle. They felt so professional. And I think obviously the broadcast is different, but being there, it was pretty cool. Like it was pretty incredible. The lighting made a drastic difference to the atmosphere, in my opinion.
It did,
Well,
and I
and
think with that,
there's this. Go ahead, Patrick.
that was part of the thing is the majority of the people that watched, majority of the people that saw it online, and there's roughly 1,000, 1,200, however many people there that got to see it live and got to experience that. But then the other 100,000, 150,000, whatever that watched it online, they got a totally different viewing experience. So you got to figure out who are you trying to cater to, the thousands that are there or the hundreds that are watching. And I think there is a fine line there somewhere. I think
But here's the thing, Patrick. This is the thing, because everyone always says this thing, but then the counter is, because if you want to say, oh, but there's 10 times, 100 times as many people watching online, yes. But then the critique that people always get is, well, no one shows up to these live events. So what's a way to get them to show up to a live event? Make the live experience better.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we made the live experience better. Everybody who came on site appreciated that. I've gone to a couple Supercross races, so you can watch them online. They're okay to watch online.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the venue, it's totally different. The fire, you can feel the flames, the smoke, the loud noises. Those are the reasons why people go there to live events. So we're trying to introduce that, and then it's like these. I don't know if these are people that are offering criticisms with the hope of it improving, or if they're offering criticisms to offering criticisms, right? Like this, right? Make the online experience worse comment. Like, no, we're not trying to make the online experience worse, but we are trying to make the in-person experience better. So it's just a matter of semantics. How do you want to look? Half full or half empty?
Yeah, you got to find that balance. And I think there were certain things like watching stream. And I know we had 10 lanes, so you had 5 that were lifting, at different varying times, and the light would kind of go on and off, and you weren't catching a lot of those like celebrations afterwards, or the athletes were stepping back into the shadows, whereas the spotlight wasn't really following them the whole way. I mean, but that they're not individually operated by like a camera operator, individually operated electronically. So I don't know. I thought it was cool. Like I said, live, outstanding. Online, like I said, I can see where some of these. I mean, I think everything I've listened to in terms of criticism, but the good thing about the criticism is that a lot of them been offering suggestions, which is, I think, very important when you're offering criticisms or complaints. Is that, hey, just don't sit there and complain for the sake of complaining. Maybe offer suggestion, and that's the thing. That's the cool thing about the WFP is that they're willing to listen to criticism, especially, and they're even more willing to listen to criticism if you have a solution or something that you think might be helpful. I mean, that's one reason why I think Brian, myself, Chad, Rodri, how we all ended up with the WFP, because we're people that have strong opinions about things and they want to hear our opinions. And it's one of the things I enjoy working with them. A lot of stuff that I know I brought on haven't been done in the CrossFit realm. I've seen it done in other spaces. And, and Brian, the same with Brian and some of the other people that were on the crew. I mean, that lighting crew, they've done WWE live events, WrestleManias, boxing events, stuff like that. So they're all about dramatic in-person experience. So I don't know.
This has definitely been our experience, Krithika. Mr. Nuts, we are doing French Throwdown recap and TFX preview show tomorrow, so we will be covering that. I did not do picks for French Throwdown, and we didn't do a show in the lead up to it because I didn't have time. I was pretty much working from morning to night from Monday through Sunday last week on WFP, so that was the cost of that. But we did obviously look and see what happened there.
I did picks, and I got them all right. I picked Braun to win. I did all that.
He got second, actually, but good try.
Well, I meant wanting to get the game stick and not more it's one, but I'm just kidding.
So we got PC. We got 40 minutes with Maysa. How do you want to use it?
All right. Let's talk. Let's go right into the leader. I mean, Maysa, is that what you want to talk about? You want to talk about performances?
Do you want to do event breakdown?
Ooh, I don't know. Where we got 40 minutes with Maysa. What do you want to do, Maysa?
Yeah, let's do event. Let's do the 6 events and our thoughts.
Okay. All right.
I feel like that could be fun.
Okay. Brian, what do you cool with that?
Yep.
Mesa, I feel like if we do that, it's going to ruin what you have planned for us to do online. But it's fine.
No, it won't. But it's up to you. Whatever you want to do, PC, I'm down.
Dang, you guys are so terrible. All right.
I
I hate.
gave my suggestion. I ran it with it. You're the one
Okay.
who second
Okay.
guessed me.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, let me bring up the events then here. Share
Let me ask you,
screen.
while Patrick is doing that, we'll start with the first event, which was the running, the muscle ups, and the snatches. Mesa, do you think if this workout was just a 3K run, that we would have had a pretty similar overall leaderboard
Yes.
just for this one workout?
Yes. I think there would have been some slight shuffles, but I think this was, especially having talked to a lot of athletes, this was a running workout. Every single athlete said the middle part was insignificant. Obviously, like at the end, I know Dallin like failed his last snatch. There was some on the last round that might have been slightly different if there wasn't that barbell. But overall, they all said that run was long enough and it was straightaways so they could, pick up pace, that it was a running workout. And I think there wasn't any other big, like largely aerobic tests over the weekend. So I think it had to be a running workout.
So if you have the thing when I say that is not to say that it should have just been a running workout, but the muscle ups and the snatches, they, even if they didn't necessarily play a huge factor into the results of this workout, they still have a residual or compounding effect
For
over the
sure.
rest of the competition. So that's the nuance there. I do think that the better runners were rewarded here. In general, I don't have much of an issue with that as one of the benchmarks of a competition. If I think running is a super critical component of fitness. And I always have this kind of like back and forth in my mind of where a running event should be placed. I don't think it necessarily matters, but the off-site nature of it, it's like that seems to always be filtered towards the front of the competition. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, I thought this was a good workout as an entry point. But apart from kind of the whatever happened to Laura on the last rep there, I didn't see like a ton of drama in this workout,
DB came from the back and went unbroken and beat like two other people that were ahead of her. I thought that was pretty dramatic.
including
I thought
Laura. Yeah, that was that same heat.
I think the biggest drama was right off. I mean, not right off the bat, but the men's field. Austin Hatfield going head to head with Adler. I mean, Adler won, which we expected Adler to win that event, but
But
Austin
nope.
Hatfield kind of taking it to him because they've never gone head to head. This is the
I,
first time they've been ever to go against each other in a competition. So, Austin Hatfield's the hot thing right now, and kind of took it to the guy right off
I
the
was
bat.
also surprised at how good his running was. I didn't know he was that good of a runner, to be honest.
Who, Hatfield?
Yeah, like I know he's good at running from the Mayhem Classic, but I didn't to be that close to Jeff Adler, who is arguably the best runner, especially with interference in the field. I was surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I am not personally surprised. I know Hatfield to be an exceptional runner. I thought he would be top 3 in that workout. I
But
actually don't know if he was.
Did you think it was going to be that close where it came down to like 0.5 of a second?
I didn't know. I mean, he was the one guy that I thought could push Adler in that workout, and he did. So
Yeah, I mean, I knew he was good, but I just, first event, just going right after Jeff. I thought that was really cool. And then the other thing I really liked on the men's side was Chandler.
Doing
Chandler
the
had,
YMCA when he came in.
yeah, yeah.
That was
you look.
great.
Maybe I'm not the best with movie references, but you reminded me of Blade doing that workout with the glasses on and
It
Oh,
was
the
yeah,
so
lighting.
great. I loved the whole persona that worked out.
And he did this and then he crossed the finish line and he did the
yeah. Did the
Chandler
launch.
time.
Yeah,
As
but
far as programming, I think also the reason that they tend to put for sure for offsite first, but also I think like it's any like quick sprint, heavy lift, you don't want it to be the first event because you want them to kind of get the competition jitters out. And I think a longer event tends to like allow athletes to ease into that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. I like that. Um,
On the women's side, obviously, I mean, I thought Amy Kringle. I actually thought Sydney Wells would do a lot better in this, but then obviously with the ring muscle up,
Mhm.
I thought that the run itself, I thought the 6 ring muscle ups would be really not that big of a deal, but obviously it slowed her down dramatically. But then Amy Kringle, just really no surprise there. But I was really encouraged by Emma Lawson finishing second in that too.
Mhm.
That was
it was
really
just a
neat.
nice start to the competition to see her have a good performance right out of the gate. Because I think she was in the bucket of athletes, of which there were several coming into this competition that we weren't exactly sure where she was at fitness wise, and just to have her in the mix from the jump was really cool.
Yeah.
I think I know Amy Kringle's such a like endurance engine athlete anyways. So it's not like shocking that she did what she did, but the ease at which what am I trying to say? The ease she did it with. Wow, tongue twist was what like she was running so casually, so far ahead, and she like did not look out of breath at all. Was completely composed the whole time. Like for a while there, Lucy Campbell was behind her, and Lucy Campbell looked like she was hurting, and Amy Kringle was just like a jog in the park. I was like, this is wild.
The one thing I want to mention, I know I referenced it real quickly, is that, that mistake, we'll call it a mistake or an execution error, just maybe misjudgment at the end by Laura, it cost her 40 something points, 43 points, I think, on that one
Mhm.
rep. And one of the things that we talked about coming into this weekend that was, to me, was really re-emphasized by the few interactions that I did have with athletes. One athlete told me this after the competition. I was talking to him down on the floor when everyone was hanging out, and said, if you sneeze at the starting line, you lose a spot. That's how close the margins are against this field. And
Mhm.
it's like, man, I've heard people throwing around the term exhibition, that this is an exhibition. Well, it's absolutely not an exhibition when there's that much money on the line. Like the $30,000 check is going to still be the biggest check that many people have ever earned in their career if they manage to do it. And the implications, which we kind of alluded to earlier, of every spot on the leaderboard in every workout over the course of the entire season are more significant than they've ever previously been. And even though there is this kind of feeling that Maysa alluded to of, well, if this one doesn't go perfect, I still have more chances later. There's also, I think, this understanding that more and more the athletes are getting that, well, yeah, that's true, but also like this one matters. And this one matters because they are cumulative.
Mhm.
So I know that some people are going to disagree with this, but I do not consider this to be an exhibition. I heard some people telling me, including Andrew, that there were some athletes who weren't, taking this seriously coming in. Well, if you watch the competition, it's pretty difficult to say that. And no matter what they're trying to say coming into a competition, you can't be one of the best in the world if at 3, 2, 1 go you don't have this competitive
You can't
drive that's just innate
you
to you.
can't watch event 4A and 4B on Saturday and
That's
tell me
exactly what I was gonna say.
that's all you have to do. Watch 4A and 4B, and you
The
tell me
finish
if
line.
athletes took it as an exhibition. I've never seen that many athletes
It was like
struggling.
acid bath. It was like acid
It
bath
was
in
worse.
Dubai
It was
years ago.
worse. It was worse because Acid Bath was at Dubai. Dubai didn't have this collection of athletes. You know, this was every single athlete was selling themselves out. There wasn't a
Yeah.
single athlete that was okay after that.
The
There
number of
was
athletes like outside of the tunnel in the back end that were just like could barely make it to the athlete warm up area. Like they just collapsed once they were off the they were like crawling. It was wild. Edison.
Well, I don't think any of us said that. I think Patrick Vellner said that he didn't have a good performance and he needs to come in more prepared. That's all that I saw him say.
Hmm. I agree.
all right. Pro two, sandbag cleans, GHD sit ups. I mean, it's a lot of GHD setups. I think that was the kind of the deciding factor, and that was the cool thing watching the challengers before the pros went, is you got to see, because there were some great athletes in the challenger division, and you got to see kind of like, almost like a demo of what the athletes in the pro division were going to do. And a lot of the athletes I talked to, it came down to the sit-ups. They just weren't used to this combination of sit-ups, sandbag cleans, and the handstand walk. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
the athletes. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
and I was going to say, if you just look at the top, like, not surprised. I think someone put in the comments already to see Justin Medeiros towards the top of a workout like that. But a lot of I think even in the studio show, when Annie and Katrin and Seth were talking about that workout, they were referencing athletes who are good at the sandbag and the handstand walk, and didn't mention the GHD sit up that often. And one of the athletes they mentioned, who's really good at those other two things, is Olivia Kerstetter, and she also did really well. So I thought this was kind of a cool workout because, like, if you look at the top finishers, they are athletes that you would recognize as being really good at either GHD sit-ups or at the handstand walk and sandbag. And so I feel like if you had either one of those skill sets being an outlier relative to the field, you could push to the top. So while in the first workout, it was pretty much just the best runners, in this workout, there were different ways to be really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, there really wasn't. I mean, besides some of the just watching some of the athletes deal with some of the struggles, we didn't really have many that struggled. I mean, I don't think anyone got capped on that on either side. No, Danny Camacho, but we can talk about Danny and his unfortunate experience there. Not unfortunate. I mean, he still got he definitely earned his way there through the qualifier. But
You're talking about Danny Camacho?
yes.
Well, I mean, let's call it what it is. The guy's got a torn hip labrum. So
Well,
if there was anyone who benefited from the lack of squatting in the qualifiers, probably him.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I don't think people knew that. So
we talked about it. I mean, we didn't know it until he filled out the athlete questionnaire the week before, and I know the guys mentioned it on the broadcast. And I just spoke to him about it on the floor after the fact, and he said it's pretty tough, and he's not sure what the best thing to do is. But he was happy to be there and great experience. And I mean, I was trying to think about it. I would say overall, he was the only guy in the pro field that didn't necessarily look like he belonged in the pro field. And a majority of that, I think, comes down at least some of that comes down to a serious injury.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I think from talking to the athletes, it seemed like amongst the men's field, the sandbag was irrelevant. They all said, like, all the great people in sandbag said they wish there was more sandbag in there, that it was a GHD handstand walk event. There was a few girls that said the sandbag was a lot bigger than they expected. I guess it was a larger sized sandbag, which was difficult for some of the smaller athletes. But every single person coming off that was like grabbing their lower abs, dying, which makes me feel like it was a GHD workout.
you had 6 women that didn't that got capped. And when I read off the name of those that got capped, some of them you could tell it's probably the sandbag or the combination of the sandbag and something else. Var Thurman and Mo, Sydney McAlishan, Linda Keesman, Paige Amenda, Emily Rethwell, and Bethany Flores. By all athletes.
I think we were saying sometime like prior to this that usually the weights are kind of easier for the woman because the women have gotten so strong that ratio isn't the same. But I think this was like one anomaly where the sandbag was actually a lot harder for the woman.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so interesting because at 150, 100, I feel like it's a lot easier for the women.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah. I think it's not weight more than it is size.
The size, yes. Not having
Like
enough.
that's for me, I get limited by like I don't have enough shoulder space to place the bag on. And I think that was an issue for a lot of them.
You're one of the bigger, taller women as well.
Yeah, she definitely is.
For both of you.
Moving on to Pro 3. So this started off Saturday, which Saturday to me was an exciting day. I mean, yeah, the second workout was a 2-parter, but it was just 3 quality workouts. So 6 rounds for time, 8 pull-ups, 6 chest to bar pull-ups, 4 bar muscle-ups, and then a progressive front squats. So, or I'm sorry, front squats that went down in reps. I thought this was really fun to watch. I was trying to see what athletes were going to go unbroken through the gymnastics portion of that. A lot of them elected to take breaks before going to the bar muscle ups.
Hmm.
Some did, but not for the full 6 rounds. And I just thought it was a really cool test there. I mean, you had some gymnastics to end day 1 with the handstand walk, and then you come right into it with some more like pulling gymnastics.
Well, just looking at the results of this one, most of the athletes on the top in the men's side were the ones that I expected to be there. No, I mean, this is a Colton Mertens workout, and he put up a ridiculously silly time on this. Hatfield, Adler, Olsen, Medeiros, Crouch, Hoff are all in the top 8. And then James Sprague in 4th. And James Sprague, like Lynn is saying here, like it was like the handstand push-up workout at Wadapalooza, where you're just like, okay, I know you're good, I know you're fit, but you should not be in the top 5 of these workouts, and you are. And I actually messaged James after the competition. I'm basically apologized to him. I'm like, I think if a competition is coming and you're not considering James as a podium threat and picking him in the top 5, Brian, I'll just speak for myself. It's a bad pick. Like, that's how good this guy's become. And when you look at a workout like this, where the best squatters are towards the top and the people with the fastest range of motion are towards the top, and he's 4th against one of the better fields we've ever seen that's 30 deep, that's extremely notable to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched the Boys Interrupted podcast last night, and James came on it, and Jason, Dallin, and Justin were all like mortified that he beat them in a squat workout. They all said that, like, as they saw him pass them each, they were like so upset. Like, what is happening? Why is James beating us in a squat workout? Because he's like the weakest of the 4 of them. But yeah, I think it was just fitness. Like, he was just fitter.
Well, that was different on the women's side, because on the women's side, outside of Laura, the women that were near the top were women that were really good at the gymnastics. Annika Greer won that, obviously. Really good on the bar. Fee, Lexi Neely, Ariel. Alex is kind of she's good at pulling. Madeline Sturt, Amy Kringle, Brooke Wells.
I would say that a lot of those people are really good at squatting too, though.
Yeah, but I think they're better at. They're better at the bar, on the bar, than they are the squatting.
For sure. And I think the gymnastics, from like talking to the athletes and their strategies beforehand, was significantly harder for the women. Like, the women were all talking about breaking way more often than the men were.
Of course. But what I was really.
Go ahead. Finish on the women.
What I really wanted to talk about this is, like, we didn't really talk about on day 1 was Laura struggling on day 1, and she comes back day 2, and it was like, we were kind of expecting this run by Laura, and we kind of ultimately know what happens. But she finishes 2nd in this workout, which is a surprise. I mean, yes, she's really good at squatting. She's one of the stronger women in this field, but she looked really good, really calculating. Was very smart on the pull-up bar, and then made up for it on the front squat. Finished 2nd, just barely, not too far behind Annika.
I also think they were in lanes right next to each other, so that probably helped too, that they could like pace right off each other.
Mm-hmm.
I was not surprised to see Laura do well on this. I mean, she, like you said with Alex, she's a great upper body puller. She's a super strong squatter. I felt like this was one of the 3 workouts that I thought she had a chance to win coming into the weekend. But I like the workout overall, because I think we definitely see a lot of different size athletes that are filtering towards the top. It's not that obvious looking at the leaderboard, whether it was favorable to be better at the upper body pulling or the squatting. Obviously, if you were bad at the squatting, then it was game over. Everyone could do the gymnastics. There was no one that was like standing around failing a muscle up. But as long as you had the strength on the barbell, I felt like there was a lot of opportunity for different athletes to do well. This was an interesting comment that I wanted to pull up from Vidush. This was where Austin won the Tour 1. Presumably he's talking about this third workout of the weekend where I think he beat Jeff Adler by 1 spot on the leaderboard. Do you guys agree with this comment?
No, I don't.
No.
Because
It was so close.
Adler had a first and a third. He got third in this, and Austin got second. I think it's the 4A is where Austin won. I mean, 4A, 4B is when Austin pulled away, because that's where Jeff had some struggles.
A different point of view from Carolyn Prevo. Hi, Carolyn. Adler lost the Tour 1, basically as a counter to saying that Austin won it. Very interesting choice of words. Do you agree with that?
No, because I mean, it's weird when people say they lose something as opposed to winning it. I don't know, especially in an individual sport. I don't.
I
know.
also think like his 4A, like he made a mistake. I don't think it was really indicative of his jerk. Like he had a fail, ran out of time. He went for the like. I think that was more like an execution error than a fitness thing. And when that happens with 6 events, it's tough.
As long as we're talking about this, I'll pull up one of Kritika's 3 takeaways from the weekend. Hoped for Luca to place higher, but the front squat workout was brutal on him. Actually had a chance to talk to him about that workout, and he said it got heavier on the last bar than I expected. It's the heaviest, he said, whatever the weight was, he said it was the heaviest that weight's ever felt. Obviously that showed. He was in the top heat after day 1, which was very cool. And then he was the last one on the floor for this workout Saturday morning, so everyone got to see that. And but I mean, if you look back at the semifinal last year, the front squat workout was also his lowest placing finish. And Tommy talked about it on the broadcast. The front squat is not a great lift for Luca relative to the field. The jerk should be a good lift for him relative to the field. So he had like kind of his best and worst lifts as critical parts of day 2.
I do think that moment made for a really cool community moment, though, where all the guys got behind him and he made it. And under the time cap was just the whole not stadium, but spectators were just losing it. It was a really cool moment.
I tried to tell him that, and he wasn't having it.
Well, the next day he did say the next day that he wishes he wasn't that athlete, but he knows moments like that are good for the community's show, whatever it is.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, I think you said it really well. It's not a position that the athletes want to be in, but it happens. It pretty much happens to everyone at some point. So,
yep.
Moving on to Pro 4A and B, which I think were just amazing.
I think that was the coolest part of the weekend.
Yeah, the jerks. I mean, it was just really cool. The one thing, and a couple other people kind of brought it up to me, I hope that they ever do something similar to this, that they do them from jerk blocks as opposed to and I understand there's some logistics involved with that, but I would, instead of the rack. But it was just fun. It was cool just seeing it. The athletes kind of just going at it, having fun. Again, I wish we would have had a heat where Tola and Guy were going against each other, kind of like looking, kind of looking over the shoulder, even though Guy did have the advantage, knowing that Tola lifted in the heat before him. But it would have been fine. Been really cool. But overall, I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that like Guy missed that lift and then he jumped from like 385 to 410 and then realized he needed 416 and just threw on 416 like a casual 30-pound jump or something. And it was pretty epic. I was wildly impressed that Jack Farlow outlifted all the pros. That was pretty awesome.
Yep.
It was reminiscent of his his games year where he finished I think around 30th, 29th or 30th that year, but he had the win on the Olympic lifting total. And even though he's been running a ton, he's still the strongest guy out there. This is a great question from Carolyn. So prior to the competition, Will Morad had told me I'm curious how many guys will hit over 400 pounds, as if it was like a guarantee that there were guys that would hit over 400 pounds. And I'm curious if a woman will be able to do 300. So that night, after they lifted, I saw that there were 9 men that had done 400 pounds or more. And even one of them was Dallin Pepper. And I'm not sure if we caught his lift on the stream or not, but I don't remember talking about it. It just kind of, because there was like enough people doing it that it wasn't that, like it wasn't an outlier at that point. It was like 20% of the total men that attempted to lift hit that weight, which is crazy. But I did make this little graphic, 9 completed, but more attempted 400. Yeah. So we made the little 400-pound club graphic for the next day on the studio show. But then we realized that I think 275 was the equivalent. I see a bunch of people throwing around 280 here in the
Yeah,
comments.
that's what I was thinking.
But there were
280.
also 9 women that did 275 or more. So it feels like that's the equivalent. And what I was thinking back to, because there's constantly this, I don't call it a debate, but like an analysis of what is the equivalent men's weight to women's weight from a percentage basis. And I think historically it was like 66%, and now it's pushed up to 70%. That's kind of used as a baseline, with one big exception, which is the specifically shoulder to overhead. And it was the first event from the 5-person games in Aromas in 2020. They did a remake of the first event from 2007, where they used a weight on that 7 shoulder overhead reps that was much less than 70%. And people were calling like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. The women have gotten stronger. And sure enough, it ended up being like an even playing field. I think that was one of the things, like Dave got that perfectly that year. So I feel like Caroline agrees, like 275 is the answer right now.
Is my video working?
It dropped for a few seconds.
Oh, it's like blacked out on mine, but that's fine. I do think also like I talked to a few like Annika and Jessica Andrasic and some of the like heavy hitters, and they were saying that with jerk, you can have people who aren't conventionally as strong at maybe like leg strength, other things, but just are very technically sound and can have very heavy jerks without, like, you wouldn't pick them as someone to lift super heavy.
Did you like it as a 50-point event?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, because it forced them to game it a little bit, because 8 minutes is a long time, and kind of left it like you can do as many attempts as you want, whatever, but having to go right into another workout, I think made them game a little bit, like how taxed they wanted to be, how adrenalized they wanted to be. So I thought it was cool.
Would you have still liked it as a 50-point event if it was a 1-rep max snatch?
Yeah, I think if it was in the same format of like not like 3 attempts, like as many as they could.
It's like, here's what Caroline's saying. I like that it was 50 points because it's a specialty lift. And I'm curious, like, what lift is not a specialty lift? Every one of us knows somebody who's amazing at deadlifting, Patrick. Everyone knows one of us that's amazing at whatever the lift is, bench press, clean.
I'm pointing at Caroline.
Caroline's
Yeah, but I think it's like maybe not specialty, but it's less commonly tested. We can put it that way.
Especially from like,
why is it less commonly tested?
Because
logistics.
Because it's coming. Most of them do it from the blocks, and it's more of a. Yeah, I mean, if it's done, if it's done like in a workout, it's usually coming from the ground, or if it's a combination, it's just not the jerk. It's like a clean and a jerk. And I feel like a lot of athletes, or a lot of coaches are probably programming that at the end of a workout or something like that. You know, just trying to get the athlete, kind of like where you shoot free throws at the end of practice, kind of deal. That's what I would do if I was coaching. I would have my athletes lift, you know, try to establish like a max rep at the end of the workout, when they're fatigued.
Mr. Nuts, such a nice comment there. And I will get back to your question from before this segment after we let Maysa go. 4A jerk, very cool. Tons of strong athletes, tons of, I think, good moments. Actually, one of my favorite moments, I think it was in Nico's day 2 recap that showed up on the broadcast the next day, was actually James Sprague missing a jerk. He missed it. He went, like, moved a step backwards, and he goes, "Fah!" And I love seeing the moments like that when you see how much it matters to them.
He also did hit his head very hard and blacked out. I was told by
On
him.
that lift.
He said
No.
he dropped a jerk on his head on the first one and he blacked out for a minute, but pulled it together because he didn't want medical to pull him off the field. But got it together and did decent for him. He was happy with it. But yeah, he did hit his head pretty bad on his first field jerk.
Yeah. And it wasn't the light's fault. It was just
No, it was just he said he's bad at putting weight over his head by his words, not mine.
yeah.
I was not that it's surprising because Olivia Kersetter's so strong, but it's still wild that she put up 292 as young as she is. It's just her ceiling is just so high. It's crazy, and it looked so good.
I was really surprised. This is where I thought Adler, he finished 19th in this one, which really surprised me. But then that's when I'm like, hey, he has a chance. There's a possibility he might not podium after I saw that 19th. He can't afford any more.
Yeah, that was his big execution error that he talked about.
Yeah.
But it was offset by Austin Hatfield getting 19th on the very next event, which was 4B.
Yeah.
And Austin was, kind of looking like he was going to be the biggest. I was thinking that Jeff won a podium at this point. I was thinking that he's in a battle for the win. And it's not that he's unused to being in a battle for the win, especially I think last year at this time at semifinals, he ended up beating Dallin and Roman by like 3 and 6 points. So he's used to close finishes. But this, I didn't, again, with what I was doing, I wasn't able to calculate necessarily this stuff real time, but I remember looking back that night and saying, oh, that's interesting that they both had a 19th on those two events. I think Austin still got more points from him because his better finish was like a third to Jeff's fifth, but they pretty much balance each other out on that two-parter.
Yeah.
I also think something we should do from a broadcast standpoint is I don't know how easy it is to do, but especially in a workout like that, missed out on, if you weren't there live, you missed out on some pretty cool celebrations. I don't know if anyone saw this, but like after DB hit her lift, she did a fadeaway jump shot with the Caitlin Clark jersey.
It was so sick.
It was so sick. She got so high off the ground. It was really cool seeing that in person. And the thing is,
has there been anything on social media showing that yet?
No, because I don't know if anyone had it. And then like Uda, when Uda hit her lift, she was like center of her, like the jump and celebration she had. I don't know. I haven't seen anything on that. I don't know if we have anything like that.
I know that one of the problems, and this is like, I can speak to this because I was sitting back there watching, is trying to, because there was no deliberate spacing of the lifting. So anybody can lift at any time. And obviously they're loading their bars and you get some clues, but there were times that athletes would come up to the bar and then back up. And you're like, oh, okay. And then there's other times where like 3 women would go to the bar all at the same time. So what would you prefer as a viewer? I'm genuinely asking this. Would you prefer us trying to get a close-up and then switching quickly to another close-up and switching to another one? Or just leaving it wide so that you can pick out your favorite athlete from far away and still see them lift? And, I think I don't know if you guys have an opinion on that. But there were times where one person would go to lift. And if this happened with Oda, is that she was lifting, she hit her lift, but in the time that she was lifting, another athlete was putting big weights on the bar or taking big weights off the rig. So as soon as we saw that she hit it and got the approval from her judge, we switched to the other camera to show, I think it might've been even Annika that was lifting or something like that. And she also hit the lift. So,
I don't think there's a really good answer outside of doing something like Rogue where they had like an individual camera on every single athlete and you can just pick and choose, or we went like, a 4-person split screen, or you break it up and like, okay, these 4 are going at this time and these 4 are going at this time. I know it's kind of like, I'm about to sneeze here. Sorry.
I see a lot of people saying the split screen. It
Yeah.
is difficult to know what to focus on. It's not like you can just pull one split screen in and the other. Like when you see the CrossFit Games do a split screen, first of all, they don't do it too often. And when they do it, they usually do it at a point where either one of the commentators has specifically said during a long workout, I want to see these 2 people side by side for something, or that they can kind of predict what's coming more easily. This was a really difficult event to predict who was going to do what when. And and like I mentioned with Dallin Pepper, like I kind of knew that there was going to be a risk of maybe missing a big lift on one of these, which I don't like, but the format, you know, so the split screen is like, it's an option, but still, what are you going to do if there's three people lifting at the same time, 4 people lifting at the same time?
I think the only way you do that is like it's almost like going with the games where it's like 3, 2, 1, go. They got a minute to lift, and you do that for 8 rounds or whatever. And if an athlete doesn't have to go an eighth round, I mean, they don't have to go. I've done that in EMOMs, where lifting EMOMs where I've just skipped a minute to kind of rest up for my bigger lift.
Can you use snap? What is that?
I don't know.
All right, let's go to the next workout.
Yeah.
Or do we need to talk about the sled? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the sled, it was fun watching it, because watching the challengers, I knew as soon as they got off that Echo bike, by the time they brought the sled back, going down wasn't so bad. It was bringing it back. That's when it started hitting a bunch of the athletes. You could tell by just where they gripped it.
Did you see Benoit like crawl across? He like tried to run, fell on all fours, tried to run. It was great.
Yeah.
I was surprised how fast when the challengers did it. I was like, oh, this is way faster than I thought it was going to be.
And that was lighter weight for a challenger, so I knew it was going to hit the pros a little bit harder, and we saw that in some of the earlier heats, and then, but when you got to that men's heat and you looked across and you saw Jason, James, and Dallin all on that Echo bike and that sled, and then I looked over and I'm like, you still got Roman too. Roman's no slouch on the Echo bike.
That was an awesome heat. It was just such a good race.
Yeah. Was there any fast lanes for sleds? Didn't see any complaints, or we've also had trouble with sleds in comps. No, I haven't heard anything about that. In fact, from the athletes I spoke to, they said that this was the best workout they've done in a high level competition that included a sled, because it actually felt like the sled mattered and wasn't predicated on outside circumstances. So the feedback that I got was actually totally opposite to this.
I didn't hear about any fast lanes, but they're like, everyone was saying how much more difficult it was to push the sled on that surface, and that there's a lot more friction. So that's, I think, goes to what you're saying, that it was a bigger component than people expected.
And I wasn't expecting there to be any fast lanes, because if you've ever been into these field, these like soccer, these big giant multi-purpose soccer fields, it's all one giant turf. There's no outside, factors in play. It's all the same turf. So I just knew there was going to be anything like that. And and like what you said, Maysa, the reason why the friction was there, because it was a little bit older turf, so there wasn't as much recycled tires, the beads. There weren't as much of that, which is good, because if you have a lot of that, that's where you kind of have uneven playing surfaces. Like, so you'll have some lanes. Well, there wasn't lanes, but certain parts of the field that might have more than others. So.
And that was, the one workout that Will did several rounds of testing on at the competition itself, at the venue itself, about a month or 5 weeks before the competition, because he wasn't sure. And he had, I think, 2 of us test the women's and 3 people test the men's. And then just, made the decision there with the real kind of scenario that the athletes would be in.
I got to run.
And by the way, shout out to Ryan Husband. I saw him do the men's version of that workout sub 4 minutes, which was pretty cool.
Okay.
Maysa, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
If you haven't, go back and check out all the one question interviews she did on B.Friendly Fitness. There's some great content in there, just getting real time feedback from the athletes and some pretty clever questions. But yeah, have a great evening, Maysa, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye, Maysa.
Moving on.
Yeah. So Pro 5, 10 rounds per time, 1 legless rope climb, 1 rope climb, 15-meter yoke carry. Again, I thought this was you don't really see the yoke in smaller competitions. If you do see a yoke, it's usually something you're throwing over and not really carrying it. I mean, it seems like JR's incorporated a yoke in a couple of his competitions, but overall, you really don't see it that much. I thought it was a really good use of it. The legless rope climb plus the 1 rope climb. you know, yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised by Laura. It's a Sunday. You know, Laura usually does good on Sunday workouts. And what did she do? She started off Pro 5 with a pretty convincing win. I'm like, oh, here we go. Little did we know that, Pro 6 wasn't her jam. But yeah, I mean, what more can I say about the workout and the results? I mean, the people I thought that would do good in this, they did. I think it came down to the yoke because those rope climbs, it's only two. Um, it's basically 10 legless, and you don't get to this level if you can't do 10 legless rope climbs. Yeah.
No, absolutely not. JR put it in the TFX invitation this year. I think they mean syndicate,
No,
no?
it's on me. That one's on me.
Why? What am I
I
missing?
made the mistake. I made the mistake. I was thinking TFX when it was actually syndicate, and I looked at the wrong program.
Chase is giving you a hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I did see they announced the Syndicate Crown workouts, and they have both the yoke and also the 200-pound sandbag. I actually, when I saw the name of that workout, the Bag 9 come out, I expected the sandbag to be even heavier than that, knowing how heavy that test was at the games the one year. But kind of cool to see some similar implements from different programmers in different competitive seasons showing up with at least those two things this month. But yeah, I mean, look, I thought this workout was I thought it was a cool workout. Talking to the athletes, the one nuance of the workout that wasn't on paper that definitely played a factor was the transitions. And it's well known at this point that transitions are an important part of competition at the highest level. And we talk about those small margins. And it was what was cool for me to see was that the best athletes on this particular workout were increasing their paces in the transitions as the workout wore on. And I saw someone also mentioned this, the wide hands on the yoke. I can't remember exactly which athlete it was, but they had it all the way out here. They never even put them on the support. And I think that probably did relax the upper body for the legless rope climb combo. I'm just curious, I guess if Chase is here, maybe they've already talked about this, but do you think this just could have been 2 legless rope climbs for the men?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I thought it was, I don't know. I thought it would make it if you had 2 legless, it would I can kind of raise the stakes a little bit, maybe. I don't know. You either have, then I don't know. I think it should have been 2 legless. Just a simple fact is I just like I just like watching people doing legless rope climbs. I think it's more entertaining than what it's more entertaining. It just seems like it brings a faster pace. And it also forces athletes to be a little bit smart because what you end up doing is you have 20 legless rope climbs and followed by a yoke carry, in each round. But I don't know.
I mean, it's the same, it's like the yoke, presumably the weight on the yoke was meant to be very similar, but we know that the legless rope climb is often an implement where the men have the advantage over the women. And there were 20 men on the pro field that had a better time than Laura, who's one of the best you're going to ever find in the women's field in this workout. But if you put 2 legless rope climbs per round, here's maybe another, even if it was every other round, 2 legless rope climbs, 2 per round might have slowed them down. And then maybe the women would outperform the men. This may have been the compromise in the middle, but then I don't know with just like you're risking some miscommunication or misunderstanding of the workout. I think a little bit more with the athletes, judges combo in real time. But either way, I thought it was a fun workout. I couldn't tell. It was hard to tell how much, for me, it was hard to tell how much the rope climbs mattered. I noticed speed and transitions plus speed of the yoke being like covering the ground seemed to be making up more of the difference.
Yeah. Where's it at? What? Yellow did 2 on the last round. I actually was able to talk to him about this because I don't know if you knew this, but on my way back from Indianapolis to Dulles, that's who I sat
seats next to each other on the plane.
Yeah, I didn't even notice. I'm sitting there. I put my headphones in. I get down. It's the first row. It's I paid extra so because I had that really close window of catching my flight from Dulles to Frankfurt. So
Yes,
I
you do.
paid more to get up front close to the airport or the front of the plane, not first class. But I'm sitting right there. I got my window and I have my headphones in. I'm just sitting there and I just feel this giant presence over me. And I look up and it's him. And then he just smiles at me, he puts his stuff in overhead compartments and sits down right next to me. And it's basically, he has oldest leg room because it's, he basically has the whole, and then, yeah, we just talked the whole time. It was really cool. But, yeah, I
That's
talked
awesome,
about
man.
that. Him being one of the taller athletes, um, it's easier for him, especially something to do something that fast. It's just to jump up, two pulls, hits it, comes down, and then he's got the yoke, and he's one of those athletes that can do that.
I think it was only 2 hours to Washington D.C., but yes,
Yeah,
basically it sounds like it.
yeah. And behind me were Hoffer's parents, his mom and dad, and they're actually going to Frankfurt, but they were on a flight after mine too. I thought they were on the same flight. I'm like, oh, I don't know if they're going to make it, if I'm going to have problems making it, and I thought I was going to end up on their flight, but it would have been fun if it was just me and Yella for 7 hours. So,
I mean,
uh,
the thing about just looking at this workout a little bit more, the big guys kind of pushed to the top, but a lot of fitness carried the day. I felt like this was a really good finish for Austin again to sneak a top 10 here, but he gave away more points to Jeff. And the race for the men's podium was really kind of tightening up after this one. On the women's side, you kind of knew that Laura was going to do well in this workout, but you assumed Alex would also. And this was kind of where it looked like Alex was actually going to win this thing after she took second place on this workout. And overall, we'll get to Alex in a minute, but it was like she just kept answering the call. And even when people were, charging or pushing forward, she just kept having solid finishes right into the last day.
mm-hmm.
This is, Jay Crouch lost the podium on this workout, by the way, as what Lynn's saying. Jay is another one where I've pretty much owned up to the fact that I've
Lost you. No sound, Brian. You're muted. There you go.
better enough.
Yep.
That Jay, I've kind of been underestimating Jay relative to the field, but he does seem to still always have one workout like this where it takes him out of contention with just the top guys. He's still beating a majority of the field, but it generally is on these sort of heavier implements, and the jerk, and then the yoke, notably lower than the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
So good assessment there.
How did Adler do on this one? He finished 5th.
Yeah, he was totally fine. And not surprising. I mean, good runner, and as you mentioned, the runner pays off. Super strong core integrity. So the yoke was I would not say a non-issue, but he moved it super well. And again, on the men's side, I do think there was a little advantage for the taller guys. You see Roman, Yella, and James at the top, but I didn't feel like the rope climb mattered as much for the men here.
Yeah. And then gets us to Pro 6.
My God, dude.
Yeah.
I'll just say this. Like, Katrin talked about it. Annie talked about it. Tommy talked about it. All the coaches presumably would talk about this with their athletes. The first 3 movements in this chipper are all just a trap. Nothing mattered in this workout except for the last 50 feet of walking overhead lunges. And in the assessment of everything else, I kept hearing people talking about the burpees and the thrusters, and it's like, no, it's a shoulder and midline stamina, and whether you accurately assessed if you could do what you can do on those last 50 feet. And a lot of people, this is the cool thing about having a final. It's also the cool thing about having a season, because those decisions weigh a lot more heavily now, especially as we watch these things unfold over time. I had to stand watching this because of the damage. Yeah, it was just carnage on the field, and so many different athletes misassessed that capacity and just failed, and some of them failed again and again.
Yeah.
We have seen this before, but I wouldn't say, like, I was thinking of Emma Carey, Granite Games final. They had double, had walking overhead lunge, and she failed twice before getting it. But this many athletes making that mistake, I was not expecting it.
And again, this is a counterpoint against it being none of these athletes taking it serious, or this is an exhibition, because you know it was carnage. And the guys, the people, women and the men that did well on this were the ones that were smart about it. Like, when I watched Colton do it, I'm like, you know, when he walked over there, and he had a very sizable lead coming off of thrusters, he knew he had time. What he knew he couldn't afford was to get the last couple steps on that last section and get called back, because it's almost like losing your grip. Once you lose those shoulders, it takes a while for that to recover. We saw that obviously with a bunch of athletes. But when I watched that second heat of women, when we had that, when we had, was it Andrea versus, or was it Andrea and Var, where they kind of just looked at each other each time. They were like rep for rep, like, you ready? You ready? And they just kind of played off each other, but they took their time. They took their time on that last segment, and there was purposeful breaks, but it was exciting, especially when Justin went for it.
Well, Carolyn's saying here.
Yeah, everyone was kind of holding their breath to see who was going to be the athlete that would they take that one step and keep on stepping, and Justin was that guy, and I was like, all right, here we go.
And Caroline says it here. Some of them failed because they just went for it. And Katrin talked about this in the post game show. She said, like, if I made the calculated risk to go for it and it didn't go my way, I can't feel bad about that. I knew what I was choosing to do. Caroline's saying here, I was surprised that people in podium spots made that risk, because, and I mean, Adler is one of these examples, right? He could have been a little bit more conservative and ended up on the podium. He could, but maybe in his head, he doesn't care about the difference between fourth and third and second. And he felt like if he was going to win, he had to go then. But then again, that would be a decision that he knew he was making. But either way, I mean, I love the workout. Super fun to watch. My only curiosity about the double overhead walking lunge is it's very hard on the judges. The standards are not always exactly the same, and it looks to me from the naked eye that there's some very similar movement patterns that are being accepted and then being denied in terms of a rep or a no rep, that have massive implications on that workout, on that competition, and potentially also on the whole of the competition season that the WFP is. So while I love the movement, I love the risk reward, I love the gamble, I haven't watched back to see for sure, but I just remember watching in real time a couple athletes where I'm like, that just got a no rep and that got a rep, and I couldn't see from my vantage point the difference between the two calls. And I don't think it's an easy call at all. There's a very experienced field of judges there who primarily were a non-factor this weekend, which is what they want to be. I just remember thinking that, like, man, there's a lot on the line with this one movement, and the calls are really hard to make.
There was a couple I saw like that, and athletes did make appeals, and some of them won it back. Obviously, Annika's the one that stands out above more than anyone else, and she addresses in her post. She went from a top 10 finish because of that no rep, but when that happened, I was like, Annika, come on, it's one of those things like, you should know better. When have you ever dropped dumbbells from an overhead position behind you? And there was really no argument there. I mean, there was an argument because she had completed the rep and she dropped them when the rep was at the finish line. So I don't know if having her do that whole segment again was worth that penalty. Maybe like a 5-second penalty, because she'd already did all the reps. All she did was just drop it. I don't think, and that's pure. I mean, that's something else. That's a conversation topic for another time. But there's just one of those things. Just like, people were just making gambles. People were, getting no reps, whether they're the right call or not. but either way, it made it compelling. It made it fun. That's what you want to watch, and what's especially in a close leaderboard of both the men's and women's. Um, yeah, it was fun, and you can't tell me if you were watching it that that wasn't fun to watch, and also that those athletes weren't taken seriously.
Yeah, I saw a comment here. Is it possible the athletes took the actual competition seriously once they got there, but maybe not the prep? Do you think that will change for SOP too? Yes, I would say yes. Once they got there, I don't think there were any athletes that were half-assing their efforts here. The prep is a great observation here, and the prep you have to keep in mind that there was a lot of different scenarios for that. And Vellner, I saw talk about it. I think on one of the behind-the-scenes episodes that WFP put out, that this is a games quality field, but it's in the middle of a weird stretch of competition season, and it's earlier in the year than most of them are used to competing against this caliber of athlete. We know that there's athletes that competed the week prior to it, and some of them 2 weeks prior to it. And obviously, the prep for that is very different than somebody like Fellner, who could have had, as you know, he was prepping just for this, and there were other athletes doing that too. So I think this is in general a good observation, but I think it still is a case by case answer.
Oh, well, we went over that. Mesa gave us that idea and then left us. But let's take a real quick look at the leaderboard, and then maybe kind of go over like, I mean, biggest surprise from the men's side.
Biggest surprise for me on the men's side. Uh, let's see here. Not, I would say Noah Olson. I'm looking at the top 10,
Yeah.
or Justin Medeiros kind of being back in the mix for the top 5. It's funny. Like I kept saying for so many competitions, I still think Medeiros has a chance to push for top 5. I still think he has a chance to push for top 5, and he just didn't. And now he is doing it. But I would say if I'm looking at the top 10, I think there's not a lot of surprises in the top 10, maybe the way that it shifted out, but Noah Olson finishing 10th against this field, that is probably the biggest surprise in the top 10 on the men's side for me. Especially,
Yeah.
I'm starting to see these comments coming in about BKG and Yona Koski
Mhm.
and Pat Vellner on the quote unquote end of an era. And Noah's just as veteran and experienced as those guys. And here he is getting a top 10. And I think that, he wouldn't have been the guy that you would have picked for a top 10. And we obviously saw what happened in Rogue, but like Rogue was Rogue. Then he comes back and wins Wadapalooza on the team, beating a lot of these guys who are on other teams. And now 10th place here. And it's like you listen to him talk and he says, yeah, everything is like a bonus for me at this point. I'm not even like, I've already done everything I wanted to do. And he's still having a top 10 finish here. Like I have to say it was him.
Yeah, and he fully embraced the whole weekend. Like you know, from the entrances to his adoration for the crowd, everything. I mean, I hope more people kind of see what Noah does and having fun, and you know, trying to make this like I don't know, a spectacle as well as a test of fitness. And what you said about Justin, I think Justin did this like, I believe it or not, I think the podcast and his friendships that he's developed with Jason, Dallin, and James, I think that's going to help Justin in the future. I think those guys are going to look back at this and go, "Man, we should never became friends with Justin because what it's done, it's created something." Because before that, it was all about Justin by himself, right? Justin and Adam Neefer, they're doing now. Now Justin has something. He's talking to these guys regularly. It's almost like he has training partners and he's almost like he's a part of a camp, but he's not. So I think it's really cool, and I think what it is, it's reinvigorated Justin because now he has some friends, really close friends that are part of this, and they're all at his level, or in some of these instances above his level. And I think I think it's a really cool thing to see, and I'm going to keep an eye on Justin and see. I mean, he had a really good open, really good semifinal. Yeah, it'll be really interested to see what happens with him.
I mean, he had a great semifinal last year also. And,
Mhm.
there's not really a competition that he's done where he hasn't had a great performance at some point. It just in the last couple of years, not every competition has been as good as it was for a couple of years in 2021 and 2022. I see it. There's tons of comments in here. It's awesome. There's this talk about Vellner and Ricky, and Krithika is basically saying, I still count that they have a chance to kind of come back.
Yeah.
Ricky was sick this weekend.
Ricky was hurt. He was sick. I talked to him. He was not in, he was in, and I talked to Jay about it because Jay had been with him the whole time, but he was in a bad way, like sickness wise, and his body was kind of beat up after the online semifinal. And, so that's not to make excuses for him, but Ricky's not the type of person that makes excuses. But yeah, he was like, yeah, man, I'm not doing so well right now.
This I think that it's comparable. This finish, obviously, it's exactly the same number on the leaderboard, but I think that this performance and finish of 11 from Ricky is comparable to James at Rogue last year, and that's if you're sick and you're competing, like that's bound to happen. And we also, so Pat was also sick, right? I didn't hear Pat say he was sick. He was sick at Rogue last year, but not this weekend. I mean, everything I saw from Pat was basically just owning it and saying I wasn't. Someone about Sam Quant let him down. No, Sam Quant also did not come into this one 100%. We found that out in the week leading up to it. He had a couple of good performances in the top 10, but these are the hard things to know. It's like, who would have known that Emily Rolfe was hurt, that Bethany Shadwood was that hurt, that Alex Gazan was that healthy, that Emma Lazan was that happy, that Sam Quat came in injured, that Ricky was going to compete sick. So like, those are the variables that are impossible to predict.
I was really impressed with Victor. Victor looked big.
Did that just drop?
Huh?
Nothing. Yeah, what? Victor Hoffer, another great performance. I feel like he's kind of back in the mix. We haven't seen him compete in basically a year. And he was amongst, I think he was the second highest placing European. So it was, very good for him.
Yeah. I mean, he had, I think 2 top 10s back to back and 3 top 10s, a 6 in the final one. He looked bigger. I mean, he looked like, obviously no shortcuts, training with Yella, with Andre Houdet as coach. And he didn't look like a gymnast anymore, but, I was really impressed by him. I wouldn't have picked him to be top 20. I would probably put him in the bottom 10, but I was impressed by him. Chris Ibarra, obviously coming off that first event, we know he's a good runner. He showed he kind of belonged. He has to be one of the favorites. We'll talk about him in more depth tomorrow. And then looking at the bottom 10 here, Yona. This was kind of like the expectation maybe for Yona. This guy's been just burning the candle at both ends. For him to finish 20th, he had some pretty good performances, but then he had some, not so good ones. Like in the first event, 29th in that primarily a running event.
Yeah, and keep in mind that these the athletes are competing for some different things at this point. But overall, if you're looking at the challengers that are actually challenging to take pro cards at the end of the year, Colton definitely in the best position of any of those. And the only other challengers that actually placed in the top 20 on the men's side were Chris Ibarra and Nick Matthew. Obviously, there's more opportunity to come. I still think like Nate Ackerman, for example, is in a pretty decent spot there, 22nd overall after this one. And even guys like Colin and Tola, if they're in the top 25 and they're ahead of a couple of the signed athletes, that they're not in a horrible position. And I think that this is, I saw someone put in a question about Bethany Shadburn. Why even compete at this point? Because not competing yields you 0 points. Haley Adams will have 0 points on the tour points race for 2026. Emma McQuaid will have 0 tour points for 2026. Bethany will have points, and she'll have points that are in the top 30 after one tour set. The way that it works is you get to retain the points you have when you leave the competition and on the leaderboard, and then wherever place that puts you in, which in this case was last for her, but it wasn't last place for Emily Rolfe, and it wasn't last place for Travis Mayer. So they're still earning points that are contributing towards the possibility of having a pro card next year. And for athletes like that, especially those 3 that I mentioned who are towards the back end of their careers, that's valuable. It's a guaranteed income for next year for them. And at that point, I think that, I see other comments like this. Do you think more injuries are likely with overlapping counts now as part of the season? Definitely. I mean, if you're choosing to compete 3 times in 3 weeks, you have to know these athletes are too experienced and too smart. Like, you're risking injury. So that's where you have to weigh these pros and cons, and this, the whole conversation about, is it competitive between CrossFit and WFP? Like, I think that's where it kind of boils down to, at some point the athletes have to make decisions that are in their best interest from a health perspective and a financial perspective. And when you're weighing that against the decision that's been obvious forever, which is everybody wants to make the games and that's all that matters, then this is where I think the athletes are starting to have a hard time, because on paper, making the CrossFit Games is a goal for every one of these athletes. But the benefit of making the CrossFit Games is less than the benefit of getting a pro card in terms of guaranteed competition opportunities and financial earning potential. And we've mentioned it many times before, and we'll talk about it again. How sponsors respond to that will only increase or decrease the ability for athletes to make those decisions. So that's why Bethany would competing, and this is definitely a concern. The athletes competing a lot, and you see some athletes making very different choices than others. And I think it's not obvious what the right thing to do is in many cases, which is tough.
All right, let's move on. Since you were talking about Bethany, let's move on to the women. I want to give the challengers a little bit of love here before we before we leave. Yeah, great. We hadn't seen Alex compete as an individual since the games. She looked really good. Really smart decision, I think, by her not competing in the online semifinal. Coming off of something like this, going to compete at NorCal. She has a little bit of time before NorCal. Yeah, I think she'll be fine by NorCal if she's looking for games. Actually, did she? Oh, yeah, she should be fine by then.
I'm bummed that she's not in Vegas this week. I was going to go play some Catan with her and Jake, but she's visiting family. But look, for me, I look at this. The 3 women that made the podium here: Alex Kazan, Danielle Brandon, Amy Kringle. These are each of their best career accomplishments in this sport so far. It's the biggest podium that they've ever stood on. It's it may not be the biggest paycheck that they've ever gotten in a competition, because Danielle's podiumed at Wadapalooza and Alex has gotten 4th at Rogue before. But this is huge for the overall state of the women's field. In the run up to this competition, we were talking about potentially having 3 European women on the podium, and none of those were named Amy Kringle that I had picked on the podium. We were also looking at this group of North American women, and we were kind of saying, which one of them is going to be? And we looked at that list and we said, well, Danielle's the one that hasn't had as good of a finish recently, and Alex hasn't made a big podium, and now they've both done that. So to me, it just increases the depth of the field on the women's side. It increases the excitement of the competition leading into these big competitions of who's going to show up, who's going to perform, who's going to execute, who's going to fold or not under pressure. And oh no, oh my gosh, wow. So I thought that was great on the women's side when I look at the podium.
Yeah, Lucy looked good. 4th place finish. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Obviously, she's the hottest. She's like her and Colton were in Austin are really hot coming into this. Ariel in 5th. Emma Lawson, again, we talked about her earlier. I think a 6th place finish for her. That has to be a really positive for her. It's also for Olivia Kerstetter finishing 8th in this field, ahead of someone like Laura, who, again, Laura kind of went for it on the last one and basically took a last place. She didn't seem too upset about it. I think if anyone fully understands the whole season and what it pertains, I think it's Laura. I think I did overhear her talking about, hey, the points are what matter right now, and if that's what she's thinking about, then I think she's playing it's a long season.
Just super simple. There's 2,000 total tour points available if you competed all 3 stops. 500 here, 500 Maysa, 1,000 over there. Yes, this was Laura and Amatal were probably my worst picks, both of them underperforming. relative to what I picked. I see you guys talking about that. But that's cool to hear that Laura has that perspective. I think more and more of the athletes are starting to figure that out. I think the fans are starting to figure that out. And I also saw this question about Colton, and I know we're on the women's side, but I think it's good just for understanding the context of what's going on. After the competition, the word challenger is kind of irrelevant. All of the athletes that competed in Maysa are now on a leaderboard that has tour points that are chasing a pro card. So current Colton Mertens is in 8th place in the race for the pro card for 2026 right now. He's also in 1st place for a different race, which is for all the people that weren't signed pros this year. You have to be in the top 10 points earners through the first 2 tour stops to get to Copenhagen. He's leading that race. So he's in a great position to get to Copenhagen, and he's also in a great position to earn a pro card for next year. But he still has to do the qualifier in July, just like everyone else who's not a signed pro. So that's the status for Colton, and hopefully it helps a little bit with understanding. I saw this comment online of, why are the payouts for the challengers all the same? 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. And if you're looking at it as an isolated competition, challengers, that's a super legitimate question. But if you're understanding that they're actually competing for tour points against the pros as well, then their placements are actually 31st through 35th. And above them, 26th through 30th got 1,500. Above that, 20th through or whatever, 21st through 25th got 2,500. So that's where they all got $1,000. But what they did get differently is tour points. The 31st place guy or first place in challenger gets more points than the second, more points than the third, etc.
We'll go over that, Brian, after. Well, let's just go through the leaderboard and we'll go over the points after that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't want to jump ahead and you explain it again. Yeah, then we got to get into the top 10, and this is where you see some of those challengers. Obviously the name that sticks out to me and probably to some other people is Uda. I'm not surprised by that at all, just knowing her level of fitness and what she's good at. And then you see someone like Lexi Neely, who I was really impressed by her and how she performed. And then, of course, Annika. So you had, of course, Annika had that little snafu at the end. That no rep cost her, I think, a top 10 finish, and she dropped to 14th, which that probably would have put her as the highest challenger ahead of Fee. Because
it would have been. I think so. It would have been close, but I think she would have been like 10 points ahead of Fee.
Yeah. So you're seeing a lot of those challengers, and we knew that from the women's division with the challengers. It was a little bit more. It was a more, probably stacked field of challengers. But looking at this set of 11 through 20, which athlete stands out to you, or doesn't stand out?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. The challengers are doing great here. We're also. It's good to keep in mind that there were 12 pro qualifiers in the women's field because of the absence of Emma McQuaid and Haley Adams. And so the scenario is a little bit different, but Fee, Oda, Annika, Lexi, and Vor all with these, and Sydney all inside the top 20. So it's just going to be this, like, it's wide open on the women's field right now. Yeah, and I think I see some people making some comments about Brooke Wells here. Not a great weekend for Brooke Wells. Finishes 16th. The last live competition performance we saw similar to this was much better than that at Rogue. But I think it's what we were talking about at the top of the women's leaderboard. There's so many good women in the field right now, and none of them that are like really putting a stamp as being head and shoulders above the rest of the field. Yes, there's some that are consistently filtering towards the top, but even, the last 2 competitions we've seen Laura in now, she's gotten a second, and a ninth. Lucy Campbell's gotten a first and a fourth. Ariel Lowen a third and a fifth. Like, there's nobody that's just like first, second. And even inside the top 10, you see people that are able to have 5th, 6th place finishes. Next competition, 16th place finish. So there's nothing guaranteed on the women's field.
I think those comments about Brooke weren't particularly more about this competition, but more about her week. She doesn't have the best competition, but then she finds out immediately afterwards that she had major penalties and she is not, going to the games as of now based on those penalties. So I think that's what the overall feeling was, like she didn't have a good weekend. Sydney McLishan basically got the call on Monday that she was a backfill. I believe her original plan was that she wasn't going to come at all, even as a challenger. So it was kind of a last minute trip. And for her to come in and finish top 20, kind of basically, doing essentially what 13 spots, then 13 spots better than what she was, you know, I guess ranked based through the qualifier. Um, Pretty
Hey,
impressive.
Will, Will said it. Stay ready. Like he said,
Yep.
if you're in a fringe spot, whether it's to be moved from challenger to pro or from outside of the qualifying spot to in the challenger, stay ready. And we saw, especially women, take advantage of both of these things. Sydney McClishan being the biggest. I mean, I think the only athlete who didn't show up was Kyra Milligan.
Correct.
That's like, pretty good turnout, I would say overall, but also a little disappointing. Like we could have seen someone else in the field if she wasn't going to come. And then also for her, like Kyra's a good athlete. I would have liked to see how she would have done here, and we're going to see it. Like there's going to be an athlete who competed in the challenger division this weekend that will be in Copenhagen in December challenging for a pro card. And I feel like Kyra could have potentially been that athlete, especially with the state of the women's field that we're talking about right now, where it seems like so much is possible. Like, you
Hmm.
know, if you just look at like comparable athletes to her in the field over the last 12 months, why couldn't she be in a spot like where Fisa Gaffi or Annika Greer is if she gets in the pro field in Mesa? Like she has the skill sets to potentially do that. So that was a little bit of a bummer to not have her in the field, but overall it was great. And I think a lot of athletes who took those late calls, Grace Lochner, Maribel Gallardo, Sydney McAlish, capitalized on that opportunity.
Yeah. And it was just unfortunate that there were quite a few, and we'll talk about when we get to the challenger division. But there were athletes that would have came, but it was just too last minute. There was even international athletes, if they would have known a day prior, they would probably been on the flight and stuff like that. It's just, but that's the nature of the beast, like Will said, and also understand for some, especially in the challenger division, for a lot of these younger athletes, it was graduation weekend, or they made some other prior plans. I know at least 3 or 4 instances in the challenger division where they were graduating and couldn't make it, but they would have missed it, kind of like Lexi Neely did if they'd got known like a week prior. So yeah, and that's something that I had a conversation with Jackson and some other people about, and how we can make that kind of you know a commitment, kind of feel that. Obviously, you're going to have injuries and sickness here and there, but kind of just having people kind of in place already. Um,
Yeah, and I mean this, and this is the first year. There's still a lot of people that are unsure of what this is and unsure what to do. But if the WFP announces their season in the fall, September, October, November, around that time period for next year, and there's athletes that are making this a purposeful part of their competition season and attempting to get those pro cards, then those dates will be known before they compete in Copenhagen. And as soon as they earn a pro card, they can schedule accordingly, or if they feel like they're going to get a pro card, they can block off those time periods appropriately. So I think that's also trending in the right direction of getting those dates out there early, so athletes, spectators, volunteers, etc., can plan around that stuff.
yeah. So last 10, Linda Kiesman, Andres Silberg, Danny Spiegel, Lydia Fish, Trista Smith, Ella Wilkinson, Emily Roll, Paige Menza, Emily Rethwell, and then of course Bethany Flores. Emily Rolfe was the only one in this field that withdrew. It's unfortunate to see her. She, kind of been, again, did really just missed out on a games invite for Mayhem Classic. To elected not to do the online semifinal this weekend to concentrate on this, but apparently she had just some injuries and we had to deal with, and made the right decision by pulling out. But still did enough to keep a decent amount of points. It still keeps her alive for a pro card. I mean, so yeah.
It does, and that's similar to the response we had with Bethany. Like she has points that keeps her in the hunt. It'll be I don't know if the games is in the cards for her this year with the current physical health she's in and the opportunities remaining, but yeah, she's she made a post about it. I think something like she's gonna go back, rest up, get strong, and be ready to compete again. I think she's still motivated to compete at the highest level.
It was good. It was cool when you look at this. You see a lot of athletes that we aren't used to seeing. Ella Wilkinson for one, competing here in the U.S. for a major competition. So that was really cool to have her gain that experience. and as well as seeing Lydia Fish. It's always fun seeing Lydia Fish out there, um, and then Linda Kiesman, and yeah, I think overall
That's what
it was
we talked about it, and a lot of athletes talked about it. This was the biggest stage for some of them to compete, the first time to compete in the United States, the first time to compete against some athletes that they've maybe looked up to or aspired to be on a competition floor with. And for the athletes for whom that was the first time, I don't think it's going to be the last time. And it's a great opportunity for them to get some new data. I feel like I'm really good. I feel like I'm doing good in Europe or wherever I train. And now you get to test yourself against the best, and you go back with some confidence and some things to learn from.
Mhm. Let's quickly go over to the Challenger division on the men's side. If you look at the top five, impressive. I mean, you can keep on going down. I mean, these are games athletes, are people with games experience, multiple divisions, whether it be team or teen or individual. Tudor Magda walking away with the win there and some points. Ty Jenkins.
Oh, what a great battle between him and Ty all weekend, though.
Oh yeah, all weekend. It was fun to watch.
And they were in this 6 workouts. They were the class of this field. And I think Tudor. It's interesting with Tudor because he's been there before and he's kind of moved back. But if you listen to him talking about it, he feels like he's trending in the right direction. I was really motivated to hear the way that he said that. And then Ty Jenkins, he's just, to me, he's like potentially the next. He's almost like the closest thing to Dallin Pepper that we saw in terms of at that age being relevant in the men's field. It's just harder to do it on the men's side. But I think they talked about it on the studio show at one point. He has the experience of winning, and winning on a big stage at the end of a competition is a skill. And I think he showed that he didn't win this one, but I think he showed that picture. That's from this competition.
He put it up. It was from this weekend. Immediately changed his picture, so that's awesome. Having fun, and that's one thing.
So anyway,
yeah, we did see that a lot in the pro division, but at the challenger division, it seemed like, especially in the men's division, they're having so much fun, and it was cool to see that.
Absolutely, and I mean, I thought there was like the potential for the challengers to feel like they were, AAA baseball or like a less than competition. I didn't get that experience watching them at all. I didn't get that experience listening to them at all. There were a few aspects of the competition or presentation, like the walkouts, recordings of the names, some of the light things were a little different for their division, but it's the same thing that we've been talking about. Those athletes, 3, 2, 1, go, they were competing. And they were competing hard, and they were proud to be competing on that floor and in that division. I think most of them had one of two perspectives: either understanding that now they are starting to understand these points keep me in contention for the ultimate goal, and for others of them like Tommaso Pieri or Julius Kaiser, who've never come to the U.S. and competed like this, it's what I talked about previously. And I mean, to come over here and beat some of the guys that they beat, like to finish ahead of a guy like Max Krieg, for example, or Benoit Boulanger, even though he got injured, like they got to leave with some feeling like pretty good about this weekend.
Yeah. But yeah, the top five, they walk away with $1,000 for like some people. For Ty Jenkins, that's the most money he's won at an individual competition. For someone like Jorge, it's the most money he's won at an individual competition. But what they walk away with experience, with the WFP format, and now they have a full understanding. And now that they have that understanding and they have those points in their pocket, I have no doubt that these guys will be doing the qualifiers. If you're a top 5 athlete, you're not doing the qualifiers for Maysa, then it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah. Moving on to the women's, kind of just dominating the whole way. Jennifer Muir. This is really. Watching Jennifer Muir in this division was what I was expecting to see at Wadland Fest. Maybe not winning Wadland Fest, but I came away from Wadland Fest not impressed as I thought I would be. But then she completely, totally redeems herself here at the World Fitness Project.
Yeah, and third competition weekend in a row, I believe, which I was a little bit concerned about, but she looked incredible. Got a couple interviews with her with Lauren Smith. Was great to hear from her as well. And again, embracing being in that division, embracing a new opportunity for her. So amazing weekend for Jen. I've had a chance to train with her before, and talk to her and know like what her pursuits are. And this is a big step towards those things. So this was a great weekend for Jen and for Scotland. I mean, she said it on her interview, and it's definitely true. You saw last year when Rogue went to Scotland that they're like, give our girl an invite, give Jen an invite, the best in Scotland. Like they are super passionate and supportive of her. And I know that for the Scottish community, this was awesome to get to see her on a stage like this.
Yeah. And then overall, again, Jenny, it was really, I was really impressed by her too. She was just solid across the board. Knew she was going to do well in the running workout. Hannah Black, she put on quite a performance. She really impressed me in the running workout, actually finishing with fifth. Um, Miley Wade for a while there. Miley Wade was leading as some in a couple workouts.
You know what was cool about Miley Wade is that
Her
coming
hair.
into the competition, yeah, her hair, but coming into the competition, she was more of the mindset of, this is my first chance against the big girls. I'm just going to go there and have fun. I'm going to see what's going on. And then after the competition, she made a post that basically said, it was right there and I let it slip out of my hands. So
Yeah.
like that mindset kind of changed, like we've been talking about. And I think that for her, what you were alluding to with earlier on is that she was just building some confidence through the weekend, and some like belief and acknowledgement that like, hey, I do belong here. I can compete here. Actually, I can do quite well here. And then when it didn't go well at the very end, and what she had thought she might get, she didn't get a chance to stand on the podium. She was disappointed with it, and I'm sure that will fuel her. But overall, great showing. Keep in mind, she's 17 years old.
Yeah. And rounding out the top five, another great performance. From Chloe Carano. She was at one point she was in one of those backfill spots until they adjusted. But she was towards, I think she was like 15th in the qualifier rankings, but outperforming her ranking, just steadily got better. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but she really impressed me. She was solid all around, kind of like you said about Miley. Chloe is kind of a younger athlete, but she was like, I think I can compete with these girls. And then
yeah, and Chloe's been getting competition experience, but this was a step up from the highest level she's competed at previously, and again, holding her own. I think overall the challenger division served its purpose, which was to give athletes who are kind of knocking on the door a chance to compete on the big stage, but against a division that's reasonable and relevant for them. And it also keeps them in the hunt, and people like Jen or Tudor or Ty that looked really good here. It'll be very curious to see, one, if they can qualify for the pro division in Maysa. But I also am wondering if over time there'll be an evolution of this where a performance like that earns you some kind of advancement. I think that the way the World Fitness Project develops over a couple of seasons will be interesting to see on that regard.
and then we mentioned the tour points, and they put them up for the challengers and the pros. But Austin Hatfield stayed with those 500 points. What a way to kind of go into into the next event in Mesa in August. Is there any athletes, men, that should be seriously, well, I'm talking guys who currently have their pro cards, so the signed 20 athletes on the men's side they're going to be fighting for it, and I'm specifically looking at the guys that are probably 15th to 30th.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. On this list alone, here, the bottom 10 of this division, you see Vellner, BKG, and Mayer. My instinct tells me we'll see that Vellner will bounce back and have a better performance the next time. Just because this is I mean, like, let's be honest, this is the worst placement that Vellner's had at a competition in his entire career.
Yeah.
The other worst finishes that he's had have been 16th in the 2019 games, which was a joke of a system, 9th with a torn groin in the online games in 2020, and 9th at Rogue Invitational this last year. where he was sick. This was no sickness, no injury that we know of, and a 23rd place finish against a field that he said was just as good as a games field, but only with 6 opportunities to score points. So what's going on? Has Father Time caught up with him? Was he really just not prepared for this? Was it just a bad slate of workouts? I mean, look, overhead positioning is bad for him. And he had to do a handstand walk workout, not that it should be an issue, the one rep max jerk and the double dumbbell overhead lunge. So maybe it was just kind of a bad combination of things. But I feel like he'll bounce back. BKG and Travis Mayer, I'm less confident about, and it's not that they're bad. It's just the field's getting younger, the field's getting better, and Travis had to pull out of this competition, so hopefully he's healthy and can see the next one through in its entirety. But he's already given up some points to some really, really good young guys.
Yeah. I think on the men's side, I think Colton Mertens is in a really good position. In terms of
great position. I mean, look at him, 410 points, and then scroll to the right and let's find the next challenger. Chris Ibarra.
Yep.
368. So he's got a 42-point edge there. I know the relative value of a point that isn't that obvious yet, but Colton amongst the challengers is absolutely in the best spot. Yeah,
and that's 110 110 points better than Yona. So he has a 110-point lead over someone like Yona. He has 115 points over someone like Fellner, and then BKG. Those are pretty good margins. Now all he has to do is obviously he's got to do the online qualifier and finish top 10, and then show up for Maysa. And I think he's sitting in a good spot. For the women, which woman, pro woman is in a serious trouble here.
Well, keep in mind Haley Adams and so by the way, these posts, I would have done these posts differently. I would have had all 50 men on one post and all 50 women on another post, because that's how they're actually scored. And if you look at it here, Haley Adams and Emma McQuaid would be outside of the top 50, tied with every single other woman on the planet who has 0 points. Yeah. And that's a long way away from Bethany Flores, who's at 270. But Bethany, of the signed pros at 270, and Paige Cement at 28th, Emily Rolfe 27. So now you're talking about five signed pros that are in a compromised position 25% of the way through the tour points earning season. So, it's the theme of the show, I would say. The women's division is wide open. It's wide open in terms of podium potential. It's wide open in terms of pro cards to be, claimed or usurped from the signed athletes. And I think that we will see more turnover on the women's side than the men's side in terms of the exchanging of pro cards come December.
Yeah. And then conversely, the woman that's in a good position challenger-wise, not Olivia Kerstetter, I'm sorry, would be, Fee, who's in 11th, and Uda and Annika and Lexi. I really feel really good about those 4 athletes. More Fee, 392 points, which is, it's 16 points more than Uda. But yeah, and again, Annika, in her post, she stated just a simple mistake, but that just shows you how every point, every placement matters. So you're just not having people fighting for prize money. You're having athletes fighting for points, and it's more evident for the challengers. So what you're going to see is, I think when we get to Maysa, especially with Copenhagen right around the corner, athletes may be playing it smart or fighting for every point possible.
Definitely. And again, the one thing to consider is Fee, Annika, they really have shown a prowess for filtering towards the top of these online competitions this year. Oda got in on a backfill. So, but Oda, by her performance here of 13th, even if she comes in the challenger field, is still going to be in contention for Copenhagen because of how well she did in Indianapolis. So keep in mind that this can go both ways. So I'll be especially of those women, the 4 that you mentioned, Oda, I would say, is the worst at online qualifiers, whereas Lexi and Annika and Fee generally tend to do better on those. So if those 3 women, I feel like they're in an excellent spot. And Oda has absolutely capitalized as best as anyone could have projected in terms of the opportunity she was given with a couple of the signed pro athletes sitting this one out.
And I do like. I mean, Oda is going to compete at NorCal as an individual, just to get some more individual competition experience. Well, at least she's scheduled to. We'll see if she actually does that, or she just kind of concentrates concentrates on the team division, which will be a little bit easier than her competing as an individual, and then just concentrate most of her individual time on WFP. I mean, there's a lot of variables that obviously are in place, because most of these other women that she's competing with, they're competing as individuals during the game season. So there might be a little bit more wear and tear on them than, say, someone like Uda, who's competing on a team.
If this doesn't exist yet, it will exist within the next week or two.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And they posted this up also as the tour points for the challengers, but Tudor gets 250. Jennifer Muir gets 250 just for winning. So again, like you were saying before, these are more points than some of these athletes who, especially on the women's side, with Emma McQuaid and Haley Adams having 0 points. It's gonna make they're gonna have to.
So another way to think about this is Tudor Magda currently is 1 spot out of Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Because there were 10 men in the pro division that earned more points than him. So
Yeah.
all he needs to do in Maysa is outscore by tour points one of those guys to get in. Ty Jenkins would be 2 spots out. Roll Down would be 3 spots out. On the women's side, if you scroll to the right or left, wherever the women are, Jen Muir is not 1 spot out of Copenhagen, because there were 12 challengers from the qualifier that made it to pro field. So she's actually in 13th place in the race for Copenhagen. So that's just a small nuance difference because those 2 signed pro women didn't compete.
So let's answer some of these questions. You got like 20 of them were saved in the hopper here. So
okay, we'll do a little rapid fire here. I think I'll start.
Okay, why did the challengers not get cool lighting?
So there were a few decisions we made on the challenger field just for the sake of personnel. So it's like I want to call it like light coverage compared to in the past, where we have like a still camera with mic MC only, but there were some decisions that we made to give some break to some of the people who just had one job and they were doing it the entire day, so that they could do it well when at the most critical times. So not optimal, but that was kind of the reasoning behind that.
Second, again, thoughts on Siri Maha, who currently right now has won because of penalties. She had won the online semifinal, and I believe she had all her scores are verified, so it looks like that she's going to end up winning.
I mean, we've been covering Syria Mayha for over a year, 18 months, 2 years, something like that. Now I've streamed many competitions she's been at. We had her on the podcast. We've talked to her in person a bunch. She's an incredible person, super smart, super hardworking. She won the online, semifinal, but I know from watching her compete in live competition that there's not that many athletes. Like she wouldn't be able to beat a lot of those athletes in live competition yet. So that's the nature of having an online qualifier for a major competition. We saw this in 2020 with Andrea Solberg. That was the only time she's made the games. She's incredible online. She got rewarded with the game's berth that year. Granted, it was an online berth, which is not exactly what you'd be hoping for, but that was a different time. So yeah, Syria's been working hard, and this is like, a dream come true for her. She almost stopped competing, and she got a backfill invite to semifinals last season because of all the step-up penalties. And she felt a little uncertain about whether she deserved that. But having made that, it propelled her to continue competing. She's probably competed in more competitions than any athlete I know in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
And let's see how it goes at the games. But is Albania the next Iceland? I could get into that. I mean, Joanna Skendaj also competed at French Throwdown, which we'll talk more about last weekend. But no, I'm just going to say this: love Syria and everything about her, but there are athletes who will qualify for the CrossFit Games this year because of the format, because of the WFP, because of the online qualifier that probably would not have qualified in a traditional season that we're used to. And that's okay. Like it's like the biggest thing that Patrick and I have been talking about this year is there's more competitive outlets, there's more prize money, there's more exposure opportunities for more athletes than we've ever had before. And Syria is one of the athletes who's getting recognized on the global scale now that wouldn't have otherwise. So I think that's a positive. And I'm super happy for her because, as you guys know, these athletes work their asses off, and you're never guaranteed anything. And you can't say that she didn't earn that.
I love me some Monica, but she needs to work on her running fast. She was 28th, and she's going to the games.
Look, Annika's been working on her running for a long time, and we've seen many athletes make it to the CrossFit Games that aren't great runners. They're not going to finish in the top 5, probably not even in the top 10 if you're not a great runner, but Guy has done it before. Annika just showed us that she has the ability to win workouts against the best fields in the world. So I think she can afford to have 1 or 2 bad running workouts at the games and still have a great performance overall there. Especially at the games where there's less premium on each individual workout. I mean, she almost had a top 10 finish despite this 28th here. And it would be similar to saying that Haley Adams needs to work on her weightlifting. Wow, she's finished 4th, 5th, 6th, 9th at the games with always having a bottom finish. So at the games especially, I disagree with this comment. Yes, running is tested in more density than at most other competitions, but it's not precluding her from having a great performance in Albany this summer.
When will Dallin podium again? I honestly was thinking it would be top 3.
Dallin, super fascinating athlete to evaluate right now. Obviously, the men's field is similar to the women's in the fact that it's not that obvious anymore who the best person is, who's going to be the best in every given weekend. Look, he's had 4 top 5 finishes in the last 4 big competitions he's done, semifinals, games, Rogue, and now here. So he's in the mix. He's always in the mix. The margins between getting 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st are pretty small, and I think that we'll see Dallin on a podium at some point this season for sure.
Can you guys speak on going on YouTube, or at least adding in the ability to pause?
Yeah, spoke about this at the start of the show. Feedback has been received. There are specific and I think very valid and good reasons why we chose to not do it on there this time around, and that's something that I personally will be asking about the possibility of incorporating to the real-time player that we have, based on the history I have with the Disc Golf Network that didn't have that, now has that feature. So I'm trying to try to learn about how easy it is to implement. I think in terms of watching the competition, that was a very valid point of feedback, and I'm curious to see what we're capable of doing for the next one.
Yeah, and I think I started to, but there is an ability for the current broadcast to add a chat, and I think they're going to enable that chat for the next for Maysa, hopefully. So I hope that the tour continues to do a better job of explaining the points race for challengers.
I think this will just happen. Yeah, but this will happen naturally. I think, especially once you start to see the visuals, then it makes sense for more people. Obviously, there was only hypotheticals before this weekend. Now we can see those things on paper. Patrick and I just talked about it. There will be an On the Pulse episode that comes out sometime in the next 10 days, probably, that will articulate this as well. So I think the nature of the competition season will help this happen for more people.
Competing in a league with guaranteed visibility plus sponsorship from brands like Red Bull and Adidas seems like a no-brainer to me. No shade to Chocolate Milk and Border Patrol.
Yeah, this is something we've been saying is, sponsors of all levels are eventually going to have to take note of this. I don't know what the total views are at this point, but I think they're approaching 500,000. And I know that there's a platform, like the platform that it was on excluded some people from watching it. And so obviously they're trying to make that as accessible for anyone as possible. That was one of the reasons it was on that platform, was all the language translations. And, sponsors will look at that stuff. They'll want to know what's going on social media. They'll want to know what's going on their live stream. They'll want to know what's going on their YouTube channels. And those things will presumably continue to grow. So I think any sponsor who is, open-minded to what the WFP is and could become is certainly paying attention at this point.
If I'm for instance, one of the languages, Korea or Arabic, if I was one of those, if I was a company out of that country and I saw the views, which is closing out on 500,000 total views, I'm jumping on that, especially knowing that there's going to be a broadcast in that language. So,
yep.
I think the travel for this, and this is something me and Yella talked about on the plane. One of our 2-hour discussion, this was one of the topics we talked about. I think travel for this one really impacted the Euro F. Not coming over like weeks in advance. Can't wait to see what happens at Copenhagen. He said the same thing. He was excited to see what the Americans do flying to Copenhagen to compete, especially since it's harder coming from the U.S. to Europe than it is the other way around. So he was really excited about that.
Yeah, you have to, and keep in mind that there's 1,000 points on the finals and 9 workouts, as opposed to 1,000 points in 12 workouts in the United States in terms of the touring points. So there's actually an equal number of points available over the entire tour. Now, if you're not a signed pro, you have to do well on those first 2 in order to earn the chance at the last one. So there's a little nuance of discrepancy there. Last year at Rogue was the first time we really got to see the full field of men and women compete in Europe at a major competition. And there were still athletes that traveled there and did well, and there were athletes that traveled there and didn't do as well. And there were athletes in Europe who have performed better there than they have when they've traveled to the US. We've spoken about this in the past, especially Karen Frey is like a huge example of this over her career. Europe and Middle East seems to be a lot easier for her to do well than Rogue or the Games. The travel absolutely matters, but you also look at, Ricky Garrard. He came over a couple of weeks early. He got sick here, and it didn't end up mattering. So there's tons of different variables. Travel is certainly one of them. And I think that this is another thing that could potentially start to change because of the structure of the WFP with guaranteed contracts, travel and accommodations provided for. It makes it a lot easier for athletes who have to do long travel to say, you know what, they're providing me, I don't know the number of nights, let's say it's 6 nights in the hotel. I'm going to come 5 nights earlier than that. And I'm just going to pay for those extra 5 nights and get here earlier and set myself up for the competition better because I don't have the travel expense. I don't have to pay for those 6 nights. And I have a contract where I have money that's coming in consistently. So I think that this will continue to evolve, but travel is always going to be a factor in international competitions.
It's like changing the guard in both men and women field. Times are changing.
Yeah, definitely. I think, there's no doubt about it. Look at the top 5, 6 men. I think they're all under 20. I don't know. I can't remember how old Austin is, but I think they're all 26 and younger, the top 6 guys on the men's field, except for Adler. So James, Dallin, Justin, Jason, Austin, these guys are coming. And no, they're not coming. They're here. They've arrived. Like these are in the mix to win every competition, all of them, or podium or compete for top 5 spots. So it'll be interesting to see how long the old guard on the men's side can hang on. And for the women's side, I wouldn't say it's so much necessarily age. I mean, Alex is very young, but Ariel's kind of middle of her career age-wise. Danielle, same thing. Amy's new to the scene, but she's I think 26 or 27. So, but yeah, there's some new faces, some new blood, and some young blood that's in the talent pool for sure. And keep in mind, like Emma Lawson's super young, Olivia Kerstetter super young, Laura Horvath is not at 30. Like all of these women are still going to be good for several years. So it's pretty fun.
I have to recalibrate my brain to allow for the fields this deep in a 6-event comp, a non-specialty one like Rogue.
Yeah, we've been basically previewing this, and then as soon as you see it, you kind of start to realize it. Similarly to what I think will happen with the tour points, but this good of a field, this few opportunities to earn points, and also just the time caps and the nature of these competitions. It's that sneeze and you lose a spot mentality of like the fine details matter, execution matters, calculated risks will have big implications, positive or negative. And so I think it makes for excitement and drama. And I think that there have been critiques over the years that that's lacking a little bit. So I think this is kind of accomplishing something that people have been asking for.
Where are we at? How will Rogue invites be sent this year? Will they also consider WFP athletes?
Pull up the next comment.
Okay, 1 second.
Lynn's comment.
Yes, they are considering WFP. They showed on the website updated rankings. Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you have to give credit to Rogue. Like, obviously, Rogue was given an opportunity. Bill was given an opportunity by Dave, and that's have a great friendship and a great business relationship, and they've both had a lot of success by mutually working together. But here we see Rogue sponsoring one of the workouts, providing the equipment, and also factoring in clearly relevant competition into their ranking and selection process. Why are they doing that? You could make any number of guesses if you want to, but I think at the end of the day, the fact that they're acknowledging it, considering it, and working with that competition speaks to one of the reasons why Rogue is so successful, is that they are, they're making business decisions that are practical instead of making emotional decisions that may be less practical.
B.Friendly radio coverage needs to happen, and audio only broadcast of the event.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time we did Crash Crucible with Sevon, and that's how people were describing the way that I was calling the action. Like, I don't even need to see what's going on. I can just, you can just hear it as if it's a radio call. And I saw someone saying maybe Brian should do the Challenger divisions, probably because I know some of those athletes better than most. But still, there was what?
You're too busy.
Yeah, but I mean, that like, there is the potential eventually for a radio coverage of the sport. And if you find somebody like me who can just keep a running narrative and knows enough about the athletes and competition to make it interesting without having to watch it, like, why couldn't it evolve? Most sports have that. When I'm driving long distance and there's sports channels, and I might put them on and listen to a basketball or baseball game, and if the commentators are good, I can still have a good appreciation for what's going on without actually watching anything. So why couldn't fitness be like that?
Yeah. I like this one. I'm excited to see the future of WFP. I know as an athlete, I had FOMO watching, and we'll jump into the next qualifier. That's awesome. Good. I hope so.
Yeah, Caroline's has a history of doing great on qualifiers. I would say she's definitely a candidate to make it into the pro field, and that's what I don't know if you can do one and make it to Copenhagen, but you can still do one and get an incredible competition experience, earn some money, and you never know.
Yeah, and I mean, I would encourage them, even if you don't feel like you have a chance to make it Copenhagen, to still do it. Just so that way, one, it gets a competition in your belt, and also just to kind of get an idea and see what. I mean, you can't talk. I don't think it'd be hard pressed to find a single athlete that competed this weekend. I'm also talking the competitors division too, that didn't have a good time. And I think ultimately that's what you want to do. I mean, I talked to the Army Warrior Fitness team that had 2 teams that were competing in the competitor division. Like, this was fun. It was fun. And then I talked to a duo team that had 2 former teen athletes on it. They said they had a blast. So why not just get the experience? Because what it'll do is give you an understanding of the next season, which, like you said, it might be released in October, November. I mean, they already have the season kind of mapped out. It's just a matter of just refining it and securing some of these locations.
Yeah, and the competitor divisions, like Patrick was referring to, those are open signups for these touring stops. So I think that there's likely going to be more people who sign up and compete in those divisions in Arizona after hearing all the positive feedback here. And so, especially if you're out on the West Coast and you're looking for a fun competition that's really well run, it's a great option there at the end of August.
And finally, please like and subscribe. Which both of you guys are subscribed anyway. So, but if you're hearing this non-live, like and subscribe. Speaking of which, I kind of want to give kind of a sneak peek to kind of maybe upsell Maysa here. Let me bring that up here. The facility. Now, granted, Brian, I've never been in a facility like the one that we had in Indianapolis. The way it was laid out. Ideally, if that's just the setup and location of that, were just amazing. The Arizona Athletic Grounds, where they will be having it inside, won't be as spacious or as tall, but kind of similar format. They have these volleyball courts there. I don't think that's what we'll be on, but they have all these basketball courts where they do these tournaments, and it's pretty spacious itself. So
yeah, I have not been to the venue, but from talking to the core team that's been going on the site visits, I think one of the things they're excited about is that each venue is going to have a unique footprint. And it reminds me of the PGA. Every time you go to a competition, there's 18 holes, the lower score wins. But the feel of the competitions are different. The waste management takes on its own identity. Augusta National, some of these that are staples, you see them every year, and then others that filter in and out of the tour. And I think that even in this first season, for people, whether it's athletes, volunteers, spectators, or staff that go to multiple ones of these competitions, you'll see a very similar product, but with a different feel that matches the environment or the venue that they're hosting it in.
Look at that desert.
I like that.
Look at that. It's the middle of the desert, all this green grass around it.
Yeah.
Some of these are turf, obviously, but there are some grass fields they have there. Not that we'll be out there, but these are pickleball courts.
Damn, pickleball is just blown up.
This is what I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen it or whatever, but this is the fitness center that's connected to it. I definitely see that kind of being an athlete like warm up area. Why not? But anyways, but I'm excited. Like you said,
yeah, they put out a teaser. I think they put out a teaser post of both Maysa and Copenhagen. I know tickets are on sales for both. Maybe the Copenhagen one was having a little problem with the website. I also believe that opportunities to volunteer will be available very soon for people who are trying to plan ahead and want to be involved.
Yeah, Fieldhouse C, capacity of 3,000. See here.
PC, you're just looking through all these rooms to see where you can put the external media.
A media room, exactly. That's it. I'm like, oh, I can put it there. I'll put it at the pickleball courts or whatever. But yeah, it has a food court area which is cool, which I was showing here earlier. But covered walkway with like options there. But yeah, Fieldhouse B, which I think that's what will be Fieldhouse A. But anyways, so.
Yeah, Lynn, I actually had two friends of mine that volunteered on the broadcast side, and they were amazing. It was great to have them there. And, but, this is one of the things that's going to be interesting as the year plays out, because with so many, like the good thing about having all the competitions is, like we said, the exposure, the earning potential, the opportunity to compete for athletes. The bad thing about it is, there's a limited number of volunteers, judges, et cetera, that can do these things. So volunteering is always a critical part of the competitions. I think you can have a great experience even while doing that and still see some of the best in the world compete. So if you're thinking about it, just another group of people that we spoke to this weekend that seemed like they had a great time being a part of this first tour stop.
Yeah, Lynn, if you want to volunteer, I think media services will be an option. So just saying.
She's going for athlete control.
Okay. Athlete control. All right. No, that. I gotcha. That's all right. Overall, Brian, had a freaking blast. It was great to kind of come back over for a week, eat Culver's for like 3 out of my 6 days there. It was great seeing everyone. I mean, it's like the vibe we had. Like, I know you guys talked about before we got back, but like when Tommy came in, when Gabby came in, every morning I went in with Gabby. Lauren Smith drove as me, rookie, Gabby, and Tommy. And we went and got coffee before we headed into the facility. We had a little coffee crew there. It was really cool. Just going down to breakfast every morning and just seeing like Kat, Seth, Annie. It was just cool down. Just the vibes. Everyone's saying that, just vibes. Everyone was positive. Everyone was happy. It felt like CrossFit like 2 years ago. I don't know. It just felt really cool. And it was good to be a part of that. It was good to be around all that. And and I think that was the general consensus across the board from even people attending it for the first time. And again, you saw what Hiller put out, you saw what Dense Updates put out, you saw some other people what they put out. I think relative to what they said is live, it was great. They had a great experience, and knowing the people at the WFP, they take that feedback. They're going to try to. Like you said, Maysa's going to be a different experience in some ways. But I think also a lot of things that are carrying over from Indianapolis, they're going to try to enhance it even more. So I do expect a bigger vendor village. I do expect maybe more divisions competing. It's after the games. There's really no competitions going on after the games. Why not? Come to Maysa at the end of every.
And there's even there are even things that we wanted to do at this tour stop that we just ended up making a decision to not do. And across the board, because we kind of had this mentality that you don't have to do everything all at once, and it's better to do what you can do well than what you want to do poorly, or at the expense of potentially the bigger thing. So I think it was a super successful first event. I think that there's no debate about that, and I do believe that Maysa will incorporate some of the learning and feedback that's been received with the intention of moving in, upward trajectory.
Yeah, I know from the media service aspect, I have a lot of things I want to implement, but I got to figure out what my media room looks like. So, yeah. So tomorrow we have a show. We will be recapping the French Throwdown. Some interesting developments there. We'll probably also take a real quick look at the online semifinal leaderboard. 11 spots are on the board. It won't be finalized till the 19th, but a lot of athletes are getting their scores. It looks like all the women's have been adjusted. They're working on men right now, so we'll take a quick look at that, and then we'll preview TFX that's happening this weekend. So, kind of a big weekend. TFX, we'll talk about that. Quite a few athletes who competed in Indianapolis who do not have their games ticket punch yet will be vying for that. And then you have quite a few athletes that withdrew just within the last week. So we'll preview that, and yeah, we have that show scheduled for what time?
Same time.
Yeah, same time, roughly the same time. Yeah. So, but with that being said, thanks everyone.
That leaderboard for fitness experience is like changing on a almost like hourly basis as people are dropping out and people are filling in. But I'm talking to the competition, so I sent Patrick my picks, which is basically also the roster for the competition. So we'll be able to hopefully accurately talk about the people who are going to be there. I think there was 10 athletes that were on the roster that had just competed in Indianapolis, and at least 8 of them that I've heard from are planning to compete. So there will be some repeat appearances.
Yeah. Well, I was on Peter's show on before our show. He always calls me if someone canceled, so it was kind of a last minute thing, and I had 30 minutes to spare, so I already put my picks out there. I lost to Dallin. I don't know, but anyways,
you lost on the show, but maybe your picks will be better than his.
Well, I mean, John Young messaged me. He said, "Hey, he agreed. He thought I should have won, just based on my arguments." But it is what it is. But yeah, I will try.
It's far more advantageous for Peter to have Dallin win that show than you.
Exactly. Well, it's me, Souza, and Dallin, and Souza didn't even know who was competing at TFX. Souza was a last minute filler too, so I might be beat by Souza. But anyways,
I do like that panel though. I like that panel because you have people who are perceived to have different perspectives than you and Souza, plus an athlete perspective, and sometimes his shows have 3 people that are basically just going to agree on everything. And I like it a lot better with the different voices.
I will say Dallin, him describing the WFP, he was kind of spot on. If you follow track and field, professional track and field, he used a great analogy in terms of what WFP is and use that as a comparison. The games is the Olympics, Rogue is like the World Championships, and WFP right now is kind of like the Diamond League, which the Diamond League is where a lot of athletes compete during the regular season, not every 4 years. It's how they make their careers as professional athletes. And I think right now that's kind of where the WP is right now, with the hopes of maybe being higher up on the echelon. But he used that kind of example.
What I'm hoping happens this year is that a different athlete on both the men's and women's side wins the games, becomes the World Fitness Project champion for the season, and that we can have a serious conversation about what was more impressive or more difficult to achieve.
Yeah, that's the fun of sport, to make those arguments, the comparisons and arguments. Yeah. So, but yeah, show tomorrow. Great. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Thanks for Maysa coming on for a little second, for a while there. It was good to get her perspective. She crushed it on content. It was really nice to kind of just have her, and Fury. Fury, as always, crushed it. We'll be putting out his. I gotta go through his photos, but I'm gonna pick some of the 20 of the best photos. We'll put a post up for that. Maysa's got some cool things planned, kind of to recap, and then then we're just going full blown. I know you got a big day coming up this big weekend.
Look,
Got
I
a
know
big
that
week.
most people won't most people won't care, but yeah, I'm competing in the Las Vegas Challenge in the men's advanced 3 division, MA3. There's
Yep.
30 athletes in the field that I've seen, and it's a 4-round tournament, but there's a cut before the last round. I've never played in a tournament like this. I actually
Yep.
showed up on site and they told me there was a dress code and you have to wear collared shirts. So I went to a Nike outlet and picked up three collared shirts. Um, it's at a
Uh,
pretty nice country club, the course, and it's there's some top pros in the world playing in the men's open division, so it'll be fun. I mean, I obviously like a lot of people, I like to compete, and this is something that I can compete in. So I'll do my best. It's the Las Vegas Challenge, Lynn.
Las Vegas Challenge. What we need to do is see if Strike Movement can get you some 3 collared shirts for if you play in future some future ones like this. That way you have them.
Yeah, dude, I brought this like super nice, clean, white, unworn Strike Movement. I bought like my nicest B.Friendly shirt. I bought this HDR shirt. I just wanted to rep all the people and that support
Yeah.
me, and I'm gonna wear Nike Polo.
Well, now you know. Like I said, if you have fun in this, and next one, what we could do is just kind of like if you watch like the Hooters tour where they have the shirts with all the patches on there, we just get you a really nice quality like breathable shirt.
I do not watch the Hooters tour. Sorry to disappoint you.
Yeah,
I don't even know what
it's
that is.
yeah. Well, it's the Hooters golf. Like they have the PGA tour, and then I think it was called the Hooters tour. It's kind of like their qualifying tour. It's like the competitive one before, but it's kind of very similar. Um, but um, but yeah, maybe we should get you a shirt that just has your patches of your favorite brands or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll just make a B.Friendly polo, and Carl has an HDR one. So if the media guy for HDR does the caddying one day, I'll wear that. You can get some
That's cool.
phone
Yeah.
footage.
Speaking of HDR, shout out to HDR. They're one of the reasons why you're able to make that trip. I think it was Carl's idea to bring you out there, sponsor you, and have you play. I think he mentioned something about you jumping on a podcast with them and maybe recapping your experience and stuff like that. So yes, be friendly Blazers on it. Especially when we do
Thank you.
like that show. Um, but that's his dream. That's my dream now. Way to go, CJ. I'm gonna make that fucking happen. All right. But thanks to everyone to come out. Thanks to HCRCBD for always providing us support, sponsoring us, and they're just great people. So use friend 20 at checkout. The gummies I heard are amazing. Um, and again, obviously the relief stick is amazing from what I've heard as well. So make sure you check out those items, put those in your cart, use friend 20, get 20% off all your purchases, and get fast delivery. Thanks for everyone that tuned in. Thanks for everyone in the comments. Thanks to the WFP for putting on a great show and letting me and Brian be involved in it. And we're excited because I mean the planning's already going into Maysa already, and we're excited to be a part of that ride and kind of give you guys maybe a look behind the curtain if you haven't seen like any of my stories or Brian's posts and stories over the weekend. That was kind of my goal, was kind of just like show that other side, and then also having Maysa there to kind of ask unique questions for these athletes. So with that being said, it's only Wednesday, it's hump day, we're halfway there to the weekend. um, just just be kind to other people, maybe they'll be kind to you. And with that being said, be friendly, our friend.